The moment Lena Carter pushed open that door, she had no idea she was stepping into a world where mercy came with a price and salvation wore a tailored suit. Tonight, I'm taking you into a storm you won't forget, a woman running from her past, a man who controls the shadows, and a love story that lives somewhere between rescue and ruin. Stay with me until the very end. This is a journey you won't want to miss. And when you do, hit that like button and drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. Now, let's begin. The night she ran. The rain didn't fall. It attacked. It came down in sheets so thick that Lena Carter could barely see 3 feet ahead of her. Her sneakers slapped against the wet pavement, each step sending cold water splashing up her shins. Her thin jacket clung to her body like a second skin, soaked through within minutes of leaving the apartment. She had no umbrella, no plan, no destination, just movement, just away. Her lungs burned, her legs screamed, but she didn't stop, couldn't stop. Because stopping meant thinking, and thinking meant remembering the look on Ryan Blake's face when she'd finally said the words she'd been too afraid to say for 2 years. I'm leaving. She'd expected rage, expected the explosion she'd seen 100 times before, the shattered plates, the holes punched in drywall, the accusations that somehow always became her fault. But what she got instead was worse. Silence. Ryan had just stared at her. Then he'd smiled, that slow, cold smile that made her blood run ice, and said 6 words that still echoed in her skull. You won't make it without me. Lena stumbled, catching herself against a brick wall. Her palm scraped against the rough surface, but she barely felt it. The adrenaline coursing through her veins drowned out everything except the primal need to keep moving. She had left with nothing. No purse, no phone, no wallet. Ryan had made sure she never had access to money unless he gave it to her, never had friends he didn't approve of, never had anywhere to go that wasn't under his watch. For 2 years, he had systematically stripped away every piece of independence she'd once had until she'd become a ghost in her own life. But tonight, something had snapped. Maybe it was the way he'd grabbed her wrist when she'd asked if she could visit her sister. Maybe it was the bruise still yellowing on her ribs from last week's misunderstanding. Maybe it was just the crushing weight of knowing that if she didn't leave now, she never would. So she'd waited until he went to the bathroom. And she'd run. The streets were nearly empty at this hour, past midnight on a Tuesday, with weather that kept sensible people indoors. Lena's breath came in ragged gasps as she turned down another unfamiliar block. She had no idea where she was. She'd just been running in whatever direction took her farther from the apartment, farther from Ryan, farther from the life that had slowly suffocated her. A flash of lightning lit up the sky, followed immediately by thunder so loud she felt it in her chest. She flinched, pressing herself against the side of a building. That's when she saw it. A sign. Dark wood with elegant gold lettering. The Raven Room. Beneath it, a door. Heavy oak with an iron handle. Warm light glowing through the frosted glass window. Lena hesitated. She didn't know this place. Didn't know what waited inside. For all she knew, it could be worse than what she'd left behind. But then another crack of thunder rolled overhead, and the rain came down even harder, and she realized she didn't have a choice. Her hand trembled as she reached for the handle. The metal was cold against her palm, solid and real. She took a breath, deep and shaking, and pulled. Warmth hit her like a wall. The bar was dimly lit, all dark wood and soft amber lighting. It smelled like aged whiskey and something else. Leather, maybe, or old books. The kind of place that felt expensive without trying. The kind of place where Lena, dripping and bedraggled, clearly didn't belong. She stood in the doorway, water pooling at her feet, and suddenly every conversation in the room shifted. Not stopped, just shifted. People glanced her way, quickly, discreetly, then returned to their drinks, their murmured conversations. But the energy had changed. She could feel it like static in the air. Lena's first instinct was to turn around, leave, find somewhere else, anywhere else. But her legs had turned to lead, and before she could force herself to move, a voice cut through the ambient noise. "Close the door! You're letting the rain in!" The voice was calm, controlled, not unkind, but not particularly warm either, just matter of fact. Lena's eyes tracked the source and found him. He sat at the far end of the bar, partially shadowed, a glass of something amber in his hand. He didn't look at her directly, not yet, but she knew the comment had been meant for her. She stepped inside and let the door swing shut behind her. The bartender, a woman with silver-streaked hair and sharp eyes, watched Lena with an expression somewhere between concern and assessment. "You okay, honey?" The question was so simple, so normal, that it nearly broke something inside Lena's chest. When was the last time someone had asked her that? When was the last time the answer had been yes? Lena's voice came out hoarse. She cleared her throat and tried again. I needed to get out of the rain." "Well, you've come to the right place." The bartender gestured toward an empty stool. "Sit. I'll get you something warm." Lena moved on autopilot, sliding onto the leather stool. It was comfortable, worn in just the right way. She wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly aware of how badly she was shaking. From the cold, from the fear, from everything. The bartender returned with a towel and a mug of something that smelled like coffee and whiskey. "On the house," she said, sliding both across the polished wood. "You look like you need it." "Thank you." Lena's hands wrapped around the mug, soaking in the warmth. The first sip burned going down, but in a good way, a grounding way. "Rough night?" The bartender's tone was casual, but her eyes were knowing. Lena let out a breath that might have been a laugh if it hadn't been so broken. "You could say that?" The bartender nodded, as if that was all the explanation she needed. "You got somewhere to go?" The question hit harder than it should have. Lena stared down into her mug, watching the steam curl up. "No." "Family? Friends?" "Not really." Lena's voice was barely a whisper. Ryan had made sure of that. Isolated her so completely that she'd lost touch with everyone who might have helped. Her sister lived 3 states away. Her college friends had stopped calling years ago after Ryan had convinced her they were bad influences. She had no one. Nothing. The bartender's expression softened just slightly. "What's your name?" "Lena." "I'm Margaret." She extended a hand and Lena shook it, grateful for the simple human contact. "Listen, Lena, I don't know what you're running from, but if you need help..." "She needs more than help." The voice came from behind Margaret, and Lena's head snapped up. He was standing now, the man who'd told her to close the door. And now that she could see him fully, the air seemed to shift again. Adrian Voss. She didn't know his name yet. Didn't know anything about him except what her instinct screamed the moment their eyes met. Dangerous. He was tall, over 6 feet, with the kind of build that spoke of discipline rather than vanity. Dark hair, neat but not styled. A face that could have been handsome if it weren't so carefully controlled, every expression measured and deliberate. He wore a simple black shirt and dark slacks. Nothing flashy, but everything about him radiated quiet authority. The kind of authority that made people move when he entered a room. The kind that made them lower their voices when he passed. But it was his eyes that caught her, gray, like smoke or steel, and so focused on her that she felt pinned in place. "She needs safety," Adrian continued, his gaze never leaving Lena's face. "Protection. Somewhere her past can't reach her." Lena's breath caught. "How do you—" "I don't." He moved closer, slow and deliberate, until he was standing on the other side of the bar. "Not yet, but I recognized the look." "What look?" Lena's voice came out defensive, sharp. Adrian tilted his head slightly, studying her. "The look of someone who just burned her life down and has nowhere left to stand." The words hit like a punch. Lena wanted to argue, to deny it, but she couldn't, because he was right. Completely, terrifyingly right. "Who are you?" she asked instead. "Someone who can help." Adrian gestured to Margaret. "Get her some food. Real food, not just coffee." Margaret didn't question it, just nodded and disappeared through a door behind the bar. Adrian's attention returned to Lena. "When's the last time you ate?" Lena had to think about it. Breakfast? Maybe? Ryan had been in one of his moods, controlling what she put on her plate, commenting on every bite. She'd lost her appetite halfway through. "This morning, I think." "You think. It's been a long day." "I imagine so." Adrian leaned against the bar, his posture relaxed, but Lena could sense the coiled tension beneath, like a predator at rest. Still dangerous, just conserving energy. "You have a name?" "Lena Carter." "Lena." He said it slowly, as if testing the weight of it. What are you running from, Lena? She stiffened. What makes you think I'm running? Because people who aren't running don't show up soaking wet in strange bars at 1 a.m. with nothing but the clothes on their back. His tone wasn't accusatory, just observational. So let me ask again, what are you running from? Lena's jaw tightened. Every instinct told her not to trust this man. He was too calm, too controlled, too something. But what choice did she have? She was alone, broke, and terrified. And for reasons she couldn't explain, some part of her believed that Adrian Voss might actually be able to help. A man, she said finally. My ex, Ryan. Ex, Adrian repeated. As of tonight? As of 3 hours ago. And he's looking for you. It wasn't a question, but Lena answered anyway. Probably. Dangerous? Lena's laugh was bitter. You could say that. Adrian was quiet for a moment, his gray eyes studying her with an intensity that made her want to look away. But she didn't. She held his gaze, refusing to be the first to break. Finally, he nodded as if coming to some internal decision. You'll stay here tonight. Lena blinked. What? Here. The Raven Room. There are rooms upstairs. You'll take one. I can't. I don't have any money. I didn't ask for money. Adrian's voice was calm, but there was steel underneath. You need a place to stay. I have one. It's that simple. Nothing's that simple. No, Adrian agreed. But tonight, it is. Margaret returned with a plate. Roasted chicken, mashed potatoes, green beans. Real food, the kind Lena hadn't seen in weeks. Ryan had kept her on a strict diet, claiming it was for her own good. The smell alone made her stomach clench with hunger. Eat, Adrian said. Then we'll talk. Lena wanted to argue, wanted to ask questions, demand explanations, understand what the hell was happening, but her body made the decision for her. She picked up the fork and took a bite. It was the best thing she'd ever tasted. Lena didn't remember finishing the plate, but when she looked down, it was empty. Margaret had refilled her coffee, regular this time, no whiskey, and Lena wrapped her hands around the warm mug, feeling the adrenaline finally start to drain from her system. Exhaustion hit like a freight train. Come on. Adrian's voice was quiet. I'll show you upstairs. Lena followed him on autopilot, too tired to question, too drained to resist. He led her through a door behind the bar and up a narrow staircase. The second floor was quieter, more private. A hallway stretched out with several doors on either side. Adrian stopped at one near the end and pulled out a key. The door swung open to reveal a small but comfortable room, clean white linens, a dark wooden dresser, a window overlooking the street below. Bathroom's through there, Adrian said, gesturing to a door on the right. There should be towels and basic toiletries. I'll have Margaret bring up some dry clothes. Lena stepped inside, her mind struggling to process everything. Why are you doing this? Adrian paused in the doorway. Because you need help. You don't know me. No. His gray eyes met hers, and for the first time she saw something flicker in their depths, something almost like understanding. But I know what it's like to have nowhere to go. Before Lena could respond, he stepped back into the hall. Lock the door behind me. Don't open it for anyone except Margaret. Wait. But he was already gone, the door clicking shut behind him. Lena stood frozen for a moment, then moved to the door and turned the lock. The sound of the bolt sliding into place was absurdly comforting. She turned and took in the room properly. It was simple, almost Spartan, but clean and safe. Safe. When was the last time she'd felt that? Her legs gave out and she sank onto the edge of the bed, her entire body trembling. The adrenaline was gone now, leaving behind only bone-deep exhaustion and the crushing weight of everything she'd just done. She'd left. Actually left. After 2 years of fear and control and slow erasure, she'd finally run. And now she was here. In a strange bar, in a strange room, trusting a strange man because she had absolutely no other choice. Lena buried her face in her hands, and for the first time since she'd walked out of that apartment, she let herself cry. Not the quiet, hidden tears she'd learned to cry when Ryan was in the next room, full, gasping sobs that shook her entire body. She cried for the girl she used to be before Ryan. She cried for the 2 years she'd lost. She cried for the terror of not knowing what came next. A soft knock interrupted her. "Lena?" Margaret's voice muffled through the door. "I've got some clothes for you." Lena wiped her face and opened the door. Margaret stood there with a small stack of folded clothing, sweatpants, a soft t-shirt, clean underwear still in the package. "Thank you," Lena whispered, her voice raw. Margaret's expression was gentle. "You're safe here, honey. Adrian doesn't let bad things happen in his space." "His space?" "He owns the bar and the building." Margaret handed over the clothes. "Get some sleep. We'll figure out the rest tomorrow." Lena nodded, not trusting herself to speak. She closed the door, locked it again, and changed into the dry clothes. They were simple, comfortable, and most importantly, warm. She crawled under the covers and stared at the ceiling, her mind racing despite her exhaustion. Who was Adrian Voss? Why had he helped her? What did he want in return? But the questions faded as sleep pulled her under, dragging her into darkness. Lena woke to sunlight streaming through the window. For a moment, just one blissful, disoriented moment, she didn't remember where she was. Didn't remember everything that had happened. Then reality crashed back in. She sat up, her heart pounding, and took in the unfamiliar room. The events of the previous night rushed back in a flood. Ryan, the rain, the bar, Adrian. A glance at the small clock on the nightstand told her it was almost noon. She'd slept for nearly 12 hours. Her body ached, muscles stiff from running, from tension, from years of living in a constant state of fight or flight. But underneath the physical pain was something else. Relief. She was away from Ryan. For the first time in 2 years, she'd woken up without him. A knock on the door made her tense. "Lena? It's Margaret." Lena crossed to the door and opened it. Margaret stood there with a tray, coffee, toast, eggs, fruit. "Figured you might be hungry," Margaret said with a small smile. "Mind if I come in?" Lena stepped aside and Margaret set the tray on the dresser. "How are you feeling?" "I don't know," Lena admitted. "Overwhelmed, confused, scared. All normal." Margaret poured a cup of coffee and handed it to Lena. "Adrian wants to talk to you when you're ready. No rush, though. Take your time." Lena's stomach tightened. "What does he want?" "To help, if you'll let him." Margaret's eyes were kind but serious. "Look, I know this is all strange, but Adrian's good people. Little intense maybe, but he doesn't do things halfway. If he says he'll help you, he means it. And what does he get out of it?" Margaret tilted her head, considering. "Honestly, I think it makes him feel like less of a bastard." The blunt honesty startled a laugh out of Lena. "What?" "Adrian's got a complicated life," Margaret said carefully. "He's done things he's not proud of, helped people he shouldn't have, made choices that haunt him. But when he gets a chance to do something good, actually good, he takes it." She paused. "You're his chance, Lena. Don't overthink it." With that, Margaret headed for the door. "Eat. Get dressed. Come down when you're ready. And Lena?" She glanced back. "You're not alone anymore." The door closed behind her, leaving Lena standing in the middle of the room, coffee in hand, mind spinning. She forced herself to eat, to shower, to put on the fresh clothes Margaret had left folded on the dresser, jeans and a simple black sweater, both fitting surprisingly well. When she finally made her way downstairs, the bar looked different in daylight. Still elegant, still refined, but less mysterious, more real. Adrian sat at the same spot where she'd first seen him, a laptop open in front of him, reading glasses perched on his nose. He looked up when she entered, and those gray eyes locked onto her with the same unsettling intensity. "Sleep well?" he asked. "Better than I expected." Lena slid onto the stool across from him. "Thank you for last night, for the room." "You're welcome." Adrian closed the laptop and removed his glasses. "How are you feeling?" "Honestly, terrified." "Of me?" Lena considered that. "A little, but more of everything else." Adrian nodded. "That's fair. Let me make this simple, Lena. You have 2 options. Option 1, I can give you some cash, help you get to a bus station, and you can disappear, start over somewhere new. And option 2, you stay, here, under my protection. We figure out what to do about Ryan, and we make sure he can never hurt you again. Lena's breath caught. Why would you do that? Because I can. Adrian leaned forward slightly. I have resources, connections, the ability to make problems go away. And you, Lena Carter, have a problem that needs to go away. I barely know you. True. But you know Ryan, and you know that running won't be enough. He'll find you. Men like him always do. The words hit home because they were true. Ryan was obsessive, controlling. He wouldn't just let her go. He'd hunt her down, drag her back, make her pay for the humiliation of leaving. What would you want in return? Lena asked carefully. Nothing. Nobody helps for nothing. Adrian's smile was thin. You're right. Nobody does. But in this case, what I want is something you can't give me. His expression shifted, something darker flickering across it. I want to know that someone who needed help actually got it. That's all. Lena studied him, trying to see beneath the controlled surface. Margaret says you have a complicated life. Margaret talks too much. She says you've done things you're not proud of. She's not wrong. Adrian didn't flinch from it. I'm not a good man, Lena. I won't pretend to be, but I can help you. The question is whether you'll let me. Lena's mind raced. Every logical instinct told her to run, to take the cash and disappear, take her chances on her own. But logic hadn't served her well for the past 2 years. Logic had told her Ryan would change, that she could fix things, that leaving would be impossible. Maybe it was time to stop trusting logic. Okay, she heard herself say, I'll stay. Adrian's expression didn't change, but something in his eyes shifted. Good, then let's get to work. He pulled out his phone and made a call. James, I need you to run a background check, full workup, employment, financials, criminal record, associates, everything. A pause. Ryan Blake, I'll send you the details. Another pause. No. Immediate priority. He hung up and turned back to Lena. Tell me everything about him, where he works, who his friends are, what he does with his time, everything. And so Lena talked. She told Adrian about how she'd met Ryan 3 years ago at a coffee shop, how charming he'd been at first, attentive, romantic, everything she'd thought she wanted, how slowly, so slowly she barely noticed, things had changed, the suggestions that became demands, the compliments that became criticisms, the isolation that felt like love until it became a cage. She told him about Ryan's job as a financial analyst at a mid-tier investment firm, about his friends from college who enabled his worst impulses, about his temper, his jealousy, his need to control every aspect of her life. Adrian listened without interrupting, his face impassive, but Lena could see his jaw tighten with every new detail. He hit you? Adrian said when she finished. Not a question. Lena's hand moved unconsciously to her ribs. Not often, and never where it would show. That doesn't make it better. I know. Lena's voice was barely a whisper. I know it doesn't. Adrian's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, then stood. I need to take this. Stay here. Margaret will keep you company. He disappeared through a door marked private, and Lena was left alone at the bar. Margaret appeared moments later with fresh coffee. How are you holding up? I'm not sure yet. Lena wrapped her hands around the warm mug. This is all happening so fast. Adrian moves fast. It's how he operates. Margaret polished a glass absently. But he's thorough. If he says he'll handle something, he handles it. What exactly does he do? Lena asked. I mean, he owns a bar, but that's not all. Margaret's smile was knowing. No, it's not. Adrian has interests, business ventures. Let's just say he knows people who owe him favors. Is he dangerous? Margaret considered that. To his enemies? Absolutely. To people under his protection? She met Lena's eyes. Never. Before Lena could ask more, Adrian returned. His expression was darker now, controlled fury simmering beneath the surface. We have a problem, he said quietly. Lena's heart sank. What kind of problem? Ryan filed a missing persons report this morning. He's telling the police you're mentally unstable, that you might hurt yourself, that he's worried about your safety. The coffee mug nearly slipped from Lena's hands. He's lying. I know, but he's covering his bases. If you surface anywhere official, the police will contact him immediately. Adrian's jaw tightened. He's smart. I'll give him that. What do I do? Nothing. You stay here, stay quiet, and let me handle it. Adrian's phone buzzed again. He glanced at it, and something like satisfaction crossed his face. And it looks like I'm about to have some very interesting information about Mr. Ryan Blake. He answered the call. James, what have you got? Lena watched as Adrian listened, his expression growing colder with each passing second. Interesting, he said finally. Very interesting. Send me everything. He hung up and turned to Lena. Your ex has been a busy man. What do you mean? Ryan Blake is drowning in debt. Gambling, mostly. He owes money to some very unpleasant people, people who don't accept excuses. Adrian's smile was sharp. He also has a history. 2 previous girlfriends filed restraining orders against him. Both dropped them after he convinced them it was their fault. Lena's blood ran cold. I didn't know about the others. He made sure you wouldn't. Adrian leaned against the bar. But here's the important part. Ryan needs money, badly, and he's been selling information from his firm to competitors. Corporate espionage. Oh my. If that came to light, he'd lose everything. His job, his reputation, possibly his freedom. Adrian's gray eyes met hers. Which means we have leverage. What kind of leverage? The kind that makes him leave you alone permanently. Adrian's voice was ice. Because if he doesn't, his life falls apart. And I'll make sure he knows it. Lena felt something shift inside her chest. For the first time since leaving Ryan, she felt something other than fear. She felt hope. What do we do now? She asked. Adrian's smile was cold and precise. Now? We make Ryan Blake regret ever laying a hand on you. The next few days passed in a blur. Lena stayed in the room above the bar, only venturing downstairs when Adrian summoned her for updates. Margaret brought her meals, kept her company, treated her like she was something precious rather than broken. And Adrian worked. Lena didn't see most of it. Phone calls conducted in private, meetings held behind closed doors. But she felt the results. Ryan's harassment campaign died almost immediately. The missing persons report was quietly withdrawn. His name stopped appearing on social media, stopped showing up in her nightmares. How did you do it? Lena asked one evening, sitting across from Adrian in his office. A room that was all dark wood and leather, with floor-to-ceiling bookshelves and a massive desk that screamed authority. Adrian looked up from his laptop. Do what? Make him stop. Make him disappear. I didn't make him disappear. Adrian's tone was matter-of-fact. I simply ensured he understood the consequences of continuing his behavior. What consequences? His employer received an anonymous tip about his extracurricular activities. Nothing definitive, just enough to trigger an internal investigation. His bookie received information suggesting Ryan might be working with federal authorities. His friends started hearing rumors about his romantic history. Adrian closed the laptop. Separately, these things are concerning. Together, they paint a very unflattering picture. Lena stared at him. You ruined his life. No, I showed him what ruin looks like. What he does with that information is up to him. Adrian stood and moved to the window, looking out over the street below. But I suspect he'll be too busy trying to save himself to worry about you. And if he's not? Adrian turned, and the look in his eyes made Lena's breath catch. Then I'll handle it. Permanently. The word hung in the air between them, heavy with implication. I don't want you to kill him, Lena said quietly. I won't, unless he gives me no choice. Adrian's voice was calm, but there was steel underneath. I protect what's mine, Lena, and whether you realize it yet or not, you're under my protection now. That means Ryan doesn't touch you, doesn't threaten you, doesn't even think about you. Clear? Lena nodded, unable to form words. Adrian's expression softened slightly. You're safe here. I need you to believe that. I'm trying to. Lena stood, moving closer to the window. It's just, I don't understand why you're doing this. You barely know me. Does it matter? Yes, because nothing's free. There's always a price. Adrian was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was different, softer, more human. When I was 17, I watched my sister get destroyed by a man who claimed to love her. He isolated her, controlled her, broke her down piece by piece until there was nothing left of the girl I'd grown up with. His jaw tightened. I was too young to understand what was happening, too powerless to stop it. By the time I figured it out, it was too late. Lena's heart clenched. What happened to her? She left him, eventually, but the damage was done. It took her years to rebuild herself, to remember who she was before him. Adrian turned to face Lena fully. So when I see someone in that same position, someone who still has a chance to get out before it's too late, I take it. Not for them, for her. For the version of my sister who needed help and didn't get it. Lena felt tears prick her eyes. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry. Be safe. Be smart, and let me help you. Okay, Lena whispered. Okay. Adrian moved closer, close enough that Lena could see the flecks of darker gray in his eyes. You're not weak for what happened to you, Lena. You're not broken. You're a survivor, and survivors adapt. They fight. They win. I don't feel like a survivor. You will. Adrian's hand lifted, hovering near her face, but not quite touching. Give it time. The moment stretched between them, charged, intense, filled with things neither of them knew how to say. Then Adrian's phone buzzed, shattering the tension. He stepped back, his mask of control sliding back into place. I need to take this. Lena nodded, her heart still racing. I'll go back upstairs. She fled before he could respond, her mind spinning. What was happening? Why did being near Adrian make her feel both safer and more terrified than she'd felt in years? Why did some part of her want to stay in that moment? Wanted his hand to bridge the distance? No, she couldn't think like that. She'd just escaped one controlling relationship. She couldn't walk straight into another, no matter how different Adrian seemed. Could she? A week after arriving at the Raven Room, Lena received her first piece of real news about Ryan. She was having breakfast with Margaret when Adrian appeared, a tablet in his hand and a grim smile on his face. Ryan resigned from his position yesterday, he said without preamble. Effective immediately. Lena's coffee cup paused halfway to her lips. He quit? Under pressure. The investigation turned up enough irregularities that he was given a choice: resign or be fired. He chose resignation. Adrian set the tablet on the counter, showing a news article from a financial industry blog. His reputation in the field is effectively destroyed. Lena read the article, her hands trembling slightly. This says he's under investigation by the SEC. Anonymous tip, based on thoroughly documented evidence. Adrian's tone was casual, but Lena could see the satisfaction in his eyes. He won't be working in finance again anytime soon. Good. The word came out fiercer than Lena expected. Good. He deserves it. He deserves worse. Adrian's voice was cold. But this will do for now. Margaret squeezed Lena's shoulder. Looks like you can start breathing easier, honey. But Lena wasn't sure. What if he blames me? What if he comes looking? He won't. Adrian's certainty was absolute. Because he knows what happens if he does. I made that very clear. You talked to him. Briefly, yesterday, before he resigned. Adrian's smile was razor sharp. We had a conversation about choices, consequences, and what happens to men who don't know when to walk away. Lena's stomach twisted with a mixture of fear and something darker, something almost like satisfaction. What did you say to him? The truth. That if he came near you, if he contacted you, if he so much as thought your name too loudly, I would dismantle what's left of his life brick by brick. And unlike him, when I make a promise, I keep it. The intensity in Adrian's voice made Lena shiver. This was the man Margaret had warned her about, the one who was dangerous to his enemies. Thank you, Lena said quietly. Adrian's expression softened just slightly. You don't need to thank me. Yes, I do. You didn't have to do any of this. No. But I wanted to. He held her gaze for a moment longer, then turned to Margaret. I need to head out. Call if there's any trouble. Always do, Margaret replied. After Adrian left, Lena sat in silence, processing everything. Ryan was out of her life, really, truly out. She was safe. So why didn't she feel relieved? You okay? Margaret asked. I don't know what I feel, Lena admitted. For 2 years, Ryan was everything, my whole world, and now he's just gone. What do I do now? Margaret smiled. Now? You figure out who you are without him. You rebuild. You remember the person you were before, and you decide who you want to be next. Ah, that sounds terrifying. It is, but it's also freedom. Margaret started clearing the breakfast dishes. And you've got time. Adrian's not going to push you out. Take as long as you need. Lena nodded, but her mind was already racing. She couldn't stay here forever, living above a bar, hiding from the world. She needed a plan, needed to figure out her next steps. But for the first time in 2 years, those steps were hers to choose. And that, she realized, was what true freedom felt like. That night, Lena couldn't sleep. She lay in the darkness of her room, staring at the ceiling, her mind refusing to quiet. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Ryan's face. Not angry, not violent, but wearing that cold smile he'd given her the night she left. The one that said he knew something she didn't. Around 2 a.m, she gave up. She pulled on the sweatshirt Margaret had given her and padded downstairs in bare feet. The bar was empty, dim lighting casting long shadows across the polished wood. She'd expected silence, but voices drifted from Adrian's office, his door slightly ajar, a sliver of light cutting across the floor. Lena knew she should go back upstairs. Whatever conversation was happening behind that door wasn't meant for her ears. But curiosity and something darker, a need to understand exactly who Adrian Voss was, kept her frozen in place. I don't care what it costs, Adrian's voice low and controlled. I want eyes on him 24/7. If he so much as looks at a map of this neighborhood, I want to know about it. A pause. Then another voice, male, rougher. You're sure about this? Guy's already broken, lost his job, his reputation. He's not coming back from that. People like Ryan Blake don't stay broken. They fester, they plot. They convince themselves the world owes them something. Adrian's tone turned colder. I've seen it before. Men who think losing everything gives them nothing left to lose. Those are the most dangerous ones. So what do you want me to do if he makes a move? Stop him, quietly. I don't need bodies, Marcus. I need problems solved before they become problems. And the girl? Lena's breath caught. She's off limits, completely. Anyone who even looks at her wrong answers to me directly. Make sure your people understand that. They will. But boss, you getting attached? That's not like you. The silence that followed was heavy enough that Lena could feel it from where she stood. I'm protecting an innocent woman from a violent man, Adrian said finally. That's all this is. If you say so, Marcus didn't sound convinced. I'll have the full surveillance package in place by morning. Anything else? No, keep me updated. Footsteps approached the door. Lena turned and ran, silent, quick, back up the stairs. She made it to her room just as she heard the office door open fully, Marcus's heavy footsteps crossing the bar. She pressed her back against her door, heart hammering. Surveillance, guards. Adrian wasn't just helping her, he was orchestrating something bigger, something that involved people who called him boss and talked about solving problems permanently. What had she walked into? The rational part of her brain screamed that she should leave, take whatever money she could scrape together and disappear before she got pulled deeper into Adrian's world. But another part, the part that had survived 2 years with Ryan, recognized something important. Adrian scared her, but he didn't scare her the way Ryan had. Ryan's control had been about breaking her down, making her small, keeping her powerless. Adrian's control was different. It was external, directed outward at threats, not inward at her. The distinction mattered. She crawled back into bed and pulled the covers up to her chin, her mind spinning with questions she wasn't sure she wanted answered. The next morning, Margaret noticed immediately. You look like hell, she said bluntly, setting down a plate of scrambled eggs and toast. Nightmares? Something like that. Lena pushed the eggs around with her fork. Can I ask you something? Shoot. Who is Marcus? Margaret's hand stilled on the coffee pot. Where'd you hear that name? I couldn't sleep last night. I heard Adrian talking to someone. Ah. Margaret poured the coffee with deliberate care. Marcus heads up security for Adrian's other interests. What other interests? Margaret studied her for a long moment, clearly weighing how much to say. Finally, she sighed. Look, Lena, Adrian's a businessman, but not all of his business happens in boardrooms. He has investments, partnerships, arrangements with people who operate in gray areas. Marcus makes sure those arrangements stay profitable and safe. So Adrian's what? A criminal? That's a strong word. Margaret leaned against the counter. He's a man who understands how power really works. Sometimes that means working outside traditional channels. But he has rules, strict ones. No drugs, no human trafficking, no hurting innocent people. Everything else is negotiable. Lena's stomach twisted. And I'm supposed to be okay with that? I'm not telling you what to be okay with. I'm telling you the truth, because you deserve to know who's protecting you. Margaret's voice softened. Adrian's not a saint, Lena, but he's not a monster either. He's something in between, and right now, he's the only thing standing between you and Ryan Blake. The words settled over Lena like a weight. She wanted to be angry, to feel betrayed, but she couldn't summon the energy. Because Margaret was right. Whatever Adrian was, whatever he did, he'd saved her when she had nowhere else to go. Does he hurt people? Lena asked quietly. When he has to. When they deserve it. When there's no other choice. Margaret met her eyes. But never for fun. Never without reason. That's the difference between men like Adrian and men like Ryan. Adrian's violence has purpose, rules, limits. Lena nodded slowly, processing. Okay. I'm not saying I'm comfortable with it, but I'm saying I understand. Lena took a sip of coffee, grateful for the warmth. Is he dangerous to me? No. Margaret's answer was immediate and certain. You're probably the safest person in this city right now. Adrian doesn't do things halfway. If he's decided you're under his protection, then you are. Completely. Before Lena could respond, Adrian himself appeared at the bottom of the stairs, dressed in dark slacks and a charcoal button-down. He looked like he'd already been up for hours. Morning, he said, his gray eyes sweeping over Lena in a way that felt both clinical and somehow intimate. How did you sleep? Fine, Lena lied. Adrian's expression suggested he knew it was a lie, but he didn't call her on it. Instead, he pulled out his phone and set it on the counter between them. I need you to look at something. The screen showed a text message thread. Lena's blood ran cold when she saw the name at the top. Ryan Blake. He's been texting your old number, Adrian said. The phone's off, obviously, but the messages are still coming through the network. I have access. Lena's hands trembled as she picked up the phone and started reading. Lena, please, I'm sorry. I know I messed up. Just come home and we can talk. You can't just disappear. People are worried about you. I filed a missing persons report. The police are looking for you. You need to contact them. This is ridiculous. You're making a huge mistake. I know where you are. You think you can hide from me? You're mine, Lena. You'll always be mine. The messages got progressively darker, angrier. By the end, they weren't even coherent, just fragments of rage and possession. Lena set the phone down with shaking hands. When did these come in? Over the past week. The last one was 2 hours ago. Adrian's voice was ice. He's escalating. You said he was handled. You said he wouldn't come after me. I said I would handle it if he did. Adrian picked up the phone and pocketed it. And I will. But I need you to understand something, Lena. Ryan Blake is not a rational man. He's hurt, humiliated, and desperate. Men in that state don't respond to logic. They respond to fear. So what are you going to do? Threaten him again? No. Adrian's smile was cold. I'm going to show him what happens when threats become promises. Lena's heart raced. Adrian, don't what? Don't protect you? Don't make sure he understands that touching you means signing his own death warrant? Adrian leaned forward, his intensity almost overwhelming. He sent you 63 messages, Lena. 63 increasingly unhinged attempts to control you even after you left. That's not someone who's going to stop on his own. I don't want you to kill him. I won't. Unless he forces my hand. Adrian straightened. I'm meeting with him this afternoon, face to face. I'm going to make very clear what the boundaries are and what happens if he crosses them. He'll go to the police. And tell them what? That a bar owner told him to leave his ex-girlfriend alone? That's not a crime. Adrian's expression was unreadable. Trust me, Lena. I know how to have these conversations without creating problems. Lena wanted to argue, to find some way to stop this, but she couldn't because part of her, a dark, angry part she didn't want to acknowledge, wanted Adrian to scare Ryan. Wanted him to feel even a fraction of the fear she'd lived with for 2 years. Be careful, she said instead. Adrian's expression softened slightly. Always am. He left shortly after, and Lena spent the rest of the morning pacing her room, unable to focus on anything except imagining what was happening between Adrian and Ryan. Margaret brought her lunch, but she couldn't eat. Brought her tea, but it went cold. Finally, around 3, Margaret knocked and entered without waiting for an answer. Come on, she said. You're going to drive yourself crazy up here. Come help me with inventory. Lena followed her downstairs, grateful for the distraction. They spent the next few hours counting bottles, checking labels, reorganizing the stockroom. It was mindless work, exactly what Lena needed. She was in the middle of cataloging whiskey bottles when the front door of the bar opened. She glanced up, expecting a customer, and froze. Ryan stood in the doorway. He looked terrible. Unshaven, rumpled suit, eyes wild and red-rimmed. But it was still him, still the man who'd controlled every aspect of her life for 2 years. Still the nightmare she thought she'd escaped. Lena. His voice cracked on her name. Thank Christ, I've been looking everywhere for you. Lena couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Fear locked her muscles in place as Ryan crossed the bar toward her. Stay back. Margaret's voice was sharp as she stepped between them. You need to leave. Now. I'm not talking to you. Ryan's eyes never left Lena. Baby, please, just listen to me. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I've been out of my mind worried about you. Get out! Lena's voice came out strangled. Get out or I'm calling the police. The police? Ryan laughed, bitter and broken. They think you're missing. They think I'm the concerned boyfriend trying to find you. You call them, they'll bring you right back to me. That's not how it works, Margaret said firmly. And you need to leave before what? Before your boss gets back? Ryan's smile was ugly. I met with Adrian Voss today. Real interesting conversation. Seems to think he owns you now, Lena. Did you fuck him? Is that how you paid for this little sanctuary? The words hit like a slap. Lena flinched, and Ryan saw it. Saw the power he still had to hurt her. That's it, isn't it? Ryan took another step forward, and Margaret moved to block him. You left me and jumped straight into bed with some rich asshole who thinks money can buy anything. You don't know what you're talking about, Lena managed. I know you're a whore. Ryan's voice turned vicious. I know you're using him the same way you used me, but when he gets bored, when he realizes you're nothing special, you'll come crawling back. They always do. Get out. The voice came from behind Ryan, cold and deadly. Adrian stood in the doorway, perfectly still, perfectly controlled. But there was something in his eyes that made Lena's blood run cold, something that promised violence. Ryan turned, his bravado faltering slightly. This is a public place. I have every right to be here. No, Adrian moved forward with the predatory grace of a hunting cat. You have the right to leave, right now, while you still can. You threatening me in front of witnesses? I'm giving you a choice. Adrian's voice was soft, but it carried. Walk out that door, get in your car, and drive away. Never come back. Never contact Lena again. Never even think her name. And if I don't? Adrian smiled. It was the most terrifying expression Lena had ever seen. Then I stopped being polite. For a moment, Ryan held his ground. Then something in Adrian's expression must have gotten through because the color drained from his face. This isn't over, Ryan said, but his voice shook. Yes, Adrian replied. It is. Ryan looked at Lena one more time, his expression twisting with hate and hurt and something desperate. You'll regret this, both of you. Then he turned and fled. The silence that followed was deafening. Lena realized she was shaking, her entire body trembling with aftershocks of fear and adrenaline. Are you hurt? Adrian's voice was different now, gentle, concerned. No, I'm fine. Margaret, check the cameras. I want footage of him entering, everything he said, everything he did. Adrian's hand landed on Lena's shoulder, warm and grounding. And call Marcus. I want Ryan Blake followed. I want to know where he goes, who he talks to, what he does for the next 72 hours. On it. Margaret disappeared toward the office. Adrian guided Lena to a chair. Sit. Breathe. Lena sat, but breathing was harder. The panic was setting in now, the reality of seeing Ryan again crashing over her. How did he know I was here? He followed me from our meeting. Adrian's jaw was tight with controlled anger. He must have waited outside, watched where I went. I should have anticipated that. I'm sorry. You're sorry? Lena's laugh was half hysterical. He called me a whore, Adrian. He said I was using you. He's a desperate man lashing out at someone he can't control anymore. Adrian crouched down so they were eye level. Nothing he said was true. You know that, right? Lena nodded, but tears were streaming down her face now. All the fear, all the trauma, all the carefully suppressed emotions from the past week came flooding out. I thought I was safe, she whispered. I thought it was over. It will be. Adrian's hand cupped her face, his thumb brushing away tears. I promise you, Lena, this ends today. How? He knows where I am now. He'll keep coming back. He won't. The certainty in Adrian's voice was absolute. Because I'm going to make it impossible for him to do anything else. Lena wanted to ask what that meant, but she was too tired, too emotionally wrung out. She just nodded and let Adrian pull her to her feet. Come on, he said quietly. Let's get you upstairs. But as they crossed the bar, the front door burst open again. This time it wasn't Ryan. It was a woman, mid-30s, sharp business suit, badge clipped to her belt. Adrian Voss, she said, her voice carrying authority. Adrian turned slowly. That's me. Can I help you? Detective Sarah Chen, Metro PD. She held up her badge. I need to ask you some questions about Ryan Blake. Lena's stomach dropped. This was it. Ryan had done it. He'd brought the police, twisted the story, made her the problem. But Adrian's expression didn't change. What about him? He filed a complaint this afternoon claiming you threatened him. Assaulted him, actually. Says you grabbed him by the throat and told him you'd kill him if he came near his girlfriend again. Chen's eyes moved to Lena. I'm assuming this is the girlfriend in question? Ex-girlfriend, Lena said before Adrian could respond. And Ryan's lying. Adrian never touched him. That's so. Chen pulled out a notebook. Because Mr. Blake has photos, bruises on his neck that look an awful lot like finger marks. Adrian's laugh was soft and humorless. Self-inflicted, I imagine. Ryan Blake is a desperate man trying to manipulate the system. I'm sure if you check his history, you'll find this isn't the first time he's made false accusations. Actually, I did check his history. Chen's expression was unreadable. 2 previous girlfriends, restraining orders, both dropped after Blake convinced them to recant. Interesting pattern. Hope flickered in Lena's chest. So you know he's lying. I know he has a history of being accused of domestic violence. That doesn't prove he's lying now. Chen turned back to Adrian. Where were you between 2 and 4 this afternoon? Meeting with Mr. Blake, as he said, but in a public restaurant with security cameras and dozens of witnesses. Adrian's voice was calm. I'm happy to provide you with the location and time. You'll see I never laid a hand on him. Chen made a note. And what was this meeting about? I asked him to leave Ms. Carter alone. She left him, came to me for help, and he's been harassing her ever since. Adrian pulled out his phone. I have documentation, text messages, the fraudulent missing persons report, witness statements from tonight when he showed up here and verbally abused her. He was here tonight? About 20 minutes ago. My security footage will show everything. Adrian gestured toward his office. You're welcome to review it. Chen studied him for a long moment, then looked at Lena. Ms. Carter, can we talk? Privately? Lena glanced at Adrian, who nodded slightly. Of course, Lena said. Chen led her to a quiet corner of the bar. Are you here of your own free will? Yes. Has Mr. Voss hurt you in any way? Threatened you? Coerced you? No, he's been helping me. Lena's voice strengthened. Ryan Blake abused me for 2 years, detective. When I finally escaped, Adrian gave me a safe place to stay. That's all. And the nature of your relationship with Mr. Voss? He's helping me. That's it. Chen didn't look convinced, but she made notes. Mr. Blake claims you're mentally unstable, that you have a history of self-harm and false accusations. Lena's hands clenched into fists. That's a lie. All of it. Can you prove that? Can he prove his claims? Lena shot back. Because I can give you the names of 2 other women he did this exact same thing to. I can give you medical records showing injuries Ryan gave me. I can give you testimony from friends who watched him isolate me, control me, break me down. Chen's expression softened slightly. I believe you, Ms. Carter. But legally, this is complicated. You left without telling anyone where you were going. Blake filed a missing persons report in good faith. It wasn't good faith. It was manipulation. Maybe. But that's hard to prove. Chen closed her notebook. Here's my advice. File your own report. Document everything Blake has done. Get a restraining order. Build a legal case that protects you. And in the meantime? In the meantime, stay away from him. Don't engage, don't respond, don't give him any ammunition. Chen handed Lena a card. Call me if he contacts you again. Or if you need help. After Chen left, Lena stood frozen, her mind reeling. Adrian appeared at her side, his presence solid and grounding. She believed you, he said quietly. But she can't do anything. Ryan's still out there, still free to come after me. Not for long. Adrian's voice was dark with promise. Chen gave us exactly what we need, confirmation that this is a pattern, that Ryan has a history. Now we use that. How? By making sure everyone who matters knows the truth. His family, his friends, his remaining professional contacts, anyone who might believe his lies. Adrian's eyes met hers, and by making sure he knows that if he comes near you again, there won't be any witnesses to dispute what happens next. Lena should have been horrified, should have argued, pushed back, insisted there was another way, but she was so tired of being afraid, so tired of running. Okay, she whispered. Do what you have to do. Adrian's hand found hers, his fingers warm and strong. I will, I promise. That night, Lena sat in Adrian's office while he made calls. She didn't understand all of it, the coded language, the careful phrasing, but she understood enough. Adrian was building a case, not a legal one, but something more comprehensive. He was reaching out to people Ryan knew, sharing information about his past, his debts, his lies. He was systematically destroying Ryan's credibility, his support system, his ability to hurt anyone ever again. It was ruthless, calculated, exactly the kind of thing that should have terrified her. Instead, it made her feel safe. Around midnight, Adrian ended his last call and leaned back in his chair, running a hand through his hair. He looked tired, the first time Lena had seen him show any real vulnerability. It's done, he said. By morning, everyone in Ryan's world will know exactly what kind of man he is. His family, his friends, his former colleagues. He'll be toxic, untouchable. And if he still comes after me, then I stop playing nice. Adrian's eyes met hers, and there was no humor in them, no warmth, just cold, hard certainty. But he won't, because men like Ryan only have power when people believe their lies. Take that away, and they're nothing. Lena stood and moved to the window, looking out at the city lights. I don't know how to thank you. You don't need to thank me. Yes, I do. You've given me my life back. She turned to face him. Why? Why do all this for someone you barely know? Adrian was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was softer than she'd ever heard it. Because you deserve better than what he gave you. You deserve safety, peace, a chance to figure out who you are without someone controlling every aspect of your existence. Is that what your sister had? After she left? Adrian's expression tightened. Eventually, it took time, therapy, a lot of hard work rebuilding herself. He stood and moved closer. But she did it. She found herself again. And you will too. I don't know who that person is anymore. Then we'll figure it out together. The words hung between them, weighted with meaning Lena wasn't sure she was ready to unpack. She looked at Adrian, really looked at him, and saw something she hadn't expected. Loneliness. This man who commanded rooms and controlled empires, who made problems disappear with a phone call, was alone, just like her. Adrian, she said softly, what do you want? From all this? He studied her for a long moment, his gray eyes searching hers. I want you to be safe, to be happy, to have choices. And he took a breath. And maybe I want to be part of that, if you'll let me. Lena's heart hammered in her chest. She should say no, should keep her distance, should remember that she'd just escaped one controlling relationship and couldn't afford to fall into another. But Adrian wasn't Ryan. He'd proven that a dozen times over. He'd given her safety without demanding anything in return. He'd respected her boundaries, her choices, her autonomy. And standing there in his office, looking into those storm-gray eyes, Lena realized something that both terrified and thrilled her. She wanted him, too. Okay, she whispered. Adrian moved closer, slow and deliberate, giving her time to pull away. When she didn't, his hand cupped her face, his touch gentle despite the strength she knew he possessed. I won't hurt you, he said quietly. I won't control you. I won't be him. I know. And if you ever want to leave, I know, Lena said again. And she did. She knew, bone deep, that Adrian meant it, that whatever this was between them, it was her choice. Always her choice. He kissed her then, soft and careful, like she was something precious, something worth protecting. And for the first time in 2 years, Lena felt like maybe she was. When they finally pulled apart, Adrian rested his forehead against hers. This is complicated. Lena laughed softly. Everything's complicated. True. His thumb brushed across her cheek. But we'll figure it out. Together? Together. It was a promise. A beginning. And standing there in the safety of Adrian's arms, Lena let herself believe that maybe, just maybe, she could have this. Could have safety and desire, protection and freedom. A future built on choice rather than control. The road ahead wouldn't be easy. Ryan was still out there, still dangerous, still unpredictable. Adrian's world was dark and complicated in ways she didn't fully understand. But for the first time since running into that storm, Lena felt something other than fear. She felt hope. And that, she thought, was worth fighting for. The next morning, Lena woke to sunlight streaming through her window and the smell of fresh coffee. For a moment, she lay still, letting the previous night replay in her mind. Adrian's kiss, his promise, the way he'd looked at her like she was something worth protecting, worth choosing. She touched her lips, still feeling the ghost of that careful, deliberate contact. Then reality set in, cold and sharp. What had she done? She'd barely escaped one relationship, and now she was tangling herself up in something with a man who operated in shadows, who solved problems with threats and surveillance, who admitted he wasn't good. But even as the doubt crept in, she couldn't deny the fundamental difference. Ryan had taken. Adrian gave. Ryan had controlled. Adrian offered choices. The distinction wasn't subtle. It was everything. A knock interrupted her thoughts. Lena, Margaret's voice, warm and knowing. You decent? Yeah, come in. Margaret entered with a tray, coffee, fruit, toast with honey. She set it on the dresser and studied Lena with an expression that was part amusement, part concern. So, you and Adrian. Lena's cheeks flushed. It was just, relax. I'm not asking for details. Margaret poured the coffee. But I've worked for Adrian for 8 years. I've never seen him look at anyone the way he looked at you last night. Huh? How did he look at me? Like you mattered. Margaret's smile was gentle. Like you were his to protect, but also his to lose. That's new for him. Lena wrapped her hands around the coffee mug. I don't know what I'm doing, Margaret. I just got out of something terrible. I shouldn't be starting something new. Who says you're starting anything? Maybe you're just existing in the same space as someone who makes you feel safe. Maybe that's enough for now. Margaret moved toward the door, then paused. Adrian's not perfect, Lena, but he's honest about his flaws. That counts for something. After Margaret left, Lena forced herself to eat, to shower, to go through the motions of normalcy even though nothing felt normal. When she finally made her way downstairs, the bar was empty except for Adrian, who sat at his usual spot with a laptop and what looked like a mountain of paperwork. He glanced up when she entered, and something softened in his expression. Morning. Morning. Lena slid onto the stool across from him, suddenly shy. Did you sleep? A few hours. He closed the laptop. I had some things to take care of. Things related to Ryan? Adrian's jaw tightened slightly. Among other matters. But yes, Primarily Ryan. Before Lena could ask for details, Adrian's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen and his entire demeanor shifted, tension coiling through his shoulders, his expression hardening into something dangerous. "What is it?" Lena asked. Ryan filed charges: assault, harassment, and unlawful restraint. Adrian's voice was ice. "He's claiming I kidnapped you and have been holding you against your will." Lena's stomach dropped. "That's insane. I came here voluntarily. I stayed voluntarily." "I know, but he's playing this smart. He's painting himself as the concerned ex-boyfriend trying to rescue you from a dangerous man." Adrian stood, pacing with controlled fury. "Detective Chen will have to investigate. She'll come back with more questions, this time officially. Then I'll tell her the truth. It might not be enough." Adrian stopped pacing and looked at her directly. "Ryan's building a narrative. Unstable woman leaves stable relationship, falls under the influence of a known criminal. You're not a criminal." Adrian's smile was bitter. "Legally, no. But my business dealings aren't exactly conventional. If the police start digging, they'll find things that support Ryan's story. Connections to people who operate outside the law, money that moves through unofficial channels. Enough to make me look exactly like the kind of man who would manipulate a vulnerable woman." Lena stood, anger replacing fear. "So what do we do?" "We fight back. Properly this time." Adrian pulled out his phone and made a call. "James? I need a lawyer, the best domestic violence attorney in the city. Someone who can eviscerate Ryan Blake's credibility." A pause. "No, not for me. For Lena Carter. Bill it to my account." Another pause. "Good. Have them here by noon." He hung up and turned back to Lena. "You're going to file a formal complaint. Document everything Ryan did to you over the past 2 years. Get a restraining order. Build a legal case so strong that his accusations look like exactly what they are: the desperate lies of an abuser who lost control." "What about you?" "If they investigate, let them investigate. I've been operating in gray areas for years. I know how to handle scrutiny." Adrian moved closer, his hand finding hers. "But I won't let Ryan use me as a weapon against you. If my involvement makes things worse, I'll step back." "No." The word came out fierce. "You don't get to do that. You don't get to protect me by leaving." Adrian's expression flickered with something that might have been surprise. "Lena, I'm not Ryan's victim anymore, Adrian. I'm not going to be helpless. If we're doing this, we do it together. You fight for me, I fight for you. That's how this works." For a long moment, Adrian just stared at her. Then something shifted in his eyes. Respect, maybe, or recognition. "Okay, together." The lawyer arrived exactly at noon. Her name was Victoria Lang, and everything about her screamed competence and controlled aggression. She was maybe 40, with sharp features, sharper eyes, and a handshake that could crack bones. "Ms. Carter," she said, settling into a chair in Adrian's office. "Adrian's given me a brief overview, but I need to hear everything from you, and I mean everything. Details you think are too small to matter. Incidents you're embarrassed about. Things that make you feel weak or stupid. All of it." Lena glanced at Adrian, who nodded encouragingly. Then she took a breath and started talking. She told Victoria about meeting Ryan, about the slow erosion of her independence, about the first time he'd grabbed her hard enough to leave bruises, about the isolation, the financial control, the constant criticism disguised as concern, about the night she'd asked to visit her sister and he'd slammed her against a wall, his hand around her throat, his face inches from hers as he'd whispered that she wasn't going anywhere. By the time she finished, her voice was hoarse and tears streaked her face. Victoria handed her a tissue without comment, her expression professionally neutral. "Okay," Victoria said, making notes on her tablet. "That's textbook coercive control. The physical violence is documented?" "Some of it. I went to urgent care twice. Once for a sprained wrist, once for cracked ribs. I told them I fell both times." "Medical records are good. We can subpoena those." Victoria tapped her screen. "What about witnesses? Anyone who saw the abuse or the aftermath?" Lena shook her head. "Ryan was careful. He never hurt me in public. And he made sure I didn't have friends who might notice." "Oh, what about before? People who knew you before Ryan? Who can testify to the change in your behavior, your personality?" My sister, some old college friends maybe, if they'd even talk to me after I cut them off. Victoria nodded. We'll reach out to them, build a pattern. Show the court who you were before Ryan and what he turned you into. She looked up, her gaze sharp. Now for the hard question. Did Ryan ever sexually assault you? Lena's breath caught. She tried not to think about those times. The nights when she'd said no and he'd convinced her she didn't mean it. The mornings when she'd woken up to him already inside her, smiling like it was romantic. Yes, she whispered. Adrian's hand clenched into a fist on the desk, but he stayed silent. Victoria's expression didn't change. Can you testify to that? I don't know. It wasn't violent. It was just, he didn't listen when I said no. That's still assault. Victoria's voice was firm. But we don't have to lead with it. Save it for if we need it. The physical abuse and coercive control should be enough to establish a pattern. She made more notes. What about since you left? Any contact? Text messages, lots of them. Adrian has records. Good. I'll need copies of all of those. And I need a detailed timeline of the night you left, where you went, why you came here. Victoria looked at Adrian. Your involvement complicates things. Ryan's lawyers will paint you as the real threat. We need to get ahead of that. I'm aware, Adrian said calmly. What do you need from me? Full disclosure. Every business dealing, every gray area transaction, every person in your network who might give Ryan ammunition. I can't defend against accusations I don't see coming. Adrian's jaw tightened, but he nodded. I'll have everything compiled by tonight. Good. Victoria stood. I'm filing for an emergency restraining order this afternoon. It won't stop Ryan from making accusations, but it will establish that Lena is the one seeking legal protection, not him. That shifts the narrative. She turned to Lena. This is going to get ugly. Ryan will try to destroy your credibility. He'll bring up things you've tried to forget. He'll twist every moment of your relationship into proof that you're unstable, manipulative, or lying. Can you handle that? Lena thought about the past 2 years. About every time Ryan had made her doubt herself, made her feel crazy, made her believe she deserved his cruelty. About running into that storm with nothing but fear driving her forward. She'd survived all of that. She could survive this. Yes, she said firmly. I can handle it. Victoria's smile was sharp and approving. Then let's destroy this bastard. Over the next 3 days, Lena lived in a blur of legal preparation. Victoria was relentless, drilling her on details, preparing her for depositions, coaching her on how to stay calm under hostile questioning. Adrian hovered in the background, a constant presence, making calls and pulling strings to ensure everything went smoothly. The restraining order was granted on the second day. Ryan was ordered to stay at least 500 feet from Lena and to cease all contact. According to Marcus, who'd been maintaining surveillance, Ryan had received the order with cold fury, crumpling the papers and throwing them across his apartment. He's not taking this well, Marcus reported to Adrian while Lena listened from the doorway of the office. Been drinking heavily. Fired from his temp job for showing up drunk. His family's cut him off after your information campaign. He's isolated, angry, and spiraling. So he's dangerous, Adrian said. Extremely. I've got 2 guys watching him around the clock, but if he decides to make a move, Marcus trailed off meaningfully. Then you stop him, whatever it takes. Adrian's voice was flat, final. I don't care about legal niceties anymore, Marcus. If Ryan Blake comes anywhere near Lena, he doesn't leave in handcuffs. He doesn't leave at all. Are we clear? Marcus nodded. Crystal. After he left, Lena stepped fully into the office. You're talking about killing him. Adrian didn't deny it. I'm talking about protecting you by any means necessary. That's not protection, Adrian. That's murder. Is there a difference? If someone's trying to hurt you and I stop them permanently, does the method really matter? Adrian's gray eyes were hard. I won't apologize for being willing to do what's necessary. And what happens to you if you do? You go to prison. I lose the one person who's actually helped me. Lena moved closer. I need you here, Adrian. Not in a cell because you made a choice you can't take back. Something flickered in Adrian's expression. Surprise, maybe, at the idea that she needed him. Lena, promise me. Promise you won't kill Ryan unless there's absolutely no other choice. Adrian was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. I promise. But if he hurts you, all bets are off. It was the best she was going to get. That night, Lena couldn't sleep again. She lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, her mind racing with worst-case scenarios. What if Ryan violated the restraining order? What if he came after her with a weapon? What if Adrian's dark promise became reality? Around 2 in the morning, she gave up and went downstairs. The bar was closed, dark except for the dim security lights. She was headed for the kitchen when she heard music, soft, classical, coming from Adrian's office. She found him sitting in the dark, a glass of whiskey in his hand, staring at nothing. "Can't sleep either?" she asked from the doorway. Adrian glanced up, unsurprised. "Apparently not." Lena crossed to the small sofa against the wall and sat down. "What are you thinking about?" "How to keep you safe without becoming the monster Ryan's trying to paint me as." Adrian took a sip of whiskey. "And how much I want to kill him anyway." "Don't." "I know. I promised." He set down the glass and turned to face her. "But it doesn't stop me from wanting to." Lena understood that. She'd had her own dark thoughts about Ryan over the past few days, moments where she'd imagined him suffering, scared, destroyed. It was ugly and human, and she refused to be ashamed of it. "Come here," Adrian said quietly. Lena crossed to him, and he pulled her onto his lap, his arms wrapping around her in a way that felt protective rather than possessive. She leaned into him, breathing in the scent of expensive cologne and whiskey and something uniquely him. "I'm scared," she admitted. "I know. Not just of Ryan. Of this. Of us. Of what happens when all of this is over and we have to figure out what we are to each other." Adrian's hand moved through her hair, gentle and grounding. "We don't have to figure it out tonight. But eventually we will. And what if I'm just another man trying to control you?" Adrian finished. "What if I'm just Ryan with better manners and more money? Are you?" "I don't know." His honesty was brutal. "I know I want to keep you safe. I know I want you in my life. But I also know my instinct is to solve problems by controlling the variables. And you're not a variable, Lena. You're a person with your own will, your own choices. I'm trying to remember that, but it doesn't come naturally to me." Lena pulled back enough to look at him. "Then we'll learn together. You'll learn to let go, and I'll learn to trust again. Deal?" Adrian's smile was small but genuine. "Deal." He kissed her then, deeper than before, with an urgency that spoke of fear and need and something neither of them was ready to name. Lena kissed him back, pouring 2 years of suppressed desire and newfound freedom into the contact. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Adrian rested his forehead against hers. "Stay with me tonight," he said quietly. "Not for sex. Just stay." Lena nodded, unable to speak past the emotion clogging her throat. Adrian stood, lifting her effortlessly, and carried her to a door at the back of his office, one she'd never noticed before. It led to a small apartment, minimalist and masculine, dominated by a massive bed with dark sheets. He set her down gently, and they crawled under the covers together, fully clothed, their bodies fitting together like puzzle pieces. Adrian's arm draped over her waist, his breath warm against her neck, and for the first time in years, Lena fell asleep feeling completely safe. She woke to chaos, shouting from downstairs, glass breaking. Adrian was already moving, grabbing a gun from the nightstand drawer before Lena even registered what was happening. "Stay here," he ordered, his voice hard and cold. "Lock the door behind me. Don't open it for anyone but me or Margaret." "Adrian!" But he was gone, moving with lethal grace toward the sounds of violence. Lena scrambled out of bed, her heart hammering. She locked the door as instructed, then pressed her ear against it, trying to make out what was happening. More shouting. A man's voice, slurred, furious, unmistakably Ryan. "Where is she? Where's Lena? I know she's here. You need to leave. Now." Adrian's voice, controlled but deadly. "Make me. Come on, big man. You think you can steal my girl and get away with it? You think your money makes you untouchable? I think you're drunk and stupid and about to make the last mistake of your life. Bring her out here, Lena. Lena, come down here and tell this asshole you're mine." Lena's entire body went cold. Ryan had come. Despite the restraining order, despite the warnings, despite everything. He'd come. And Adrian was down there with a gun. She reached for the door handle, then stopped. Adrian had told her to stay, had told her to lock the door. Going down there would only make things worse, would give Ryan what he wanted. But the alternative was letting Adrian handle this alone, and handle it his way. Footsteps on the stairs. Marcus's voice, sharp and commanding. "Boss, police are 2 minutes out. We need to contain this." "I'm trying," Adrian said through what sounded like gritted teeth. But he's not listening to reason. Then stop trying reason. Ryan's laugh was wild, unhinged. "You want her? You can have her. But first you're going to know what it feels like to lose everything." A gunshot cracked through the air. Lena's scream was involuntary. She wrenched open the door and ran, taking the stairs 2 at a time, her only thought to get to Adrian, to make sure he was okay. She burst into the bar and froze. Ryan stood in the middle of the room, a gun in his shaking hand, his face twisted with rage and tears. Adrian was on the ground, blood spreading across his shoulder. Marcus had his own weapon drawn, aimed at Ryan's head. "Don't move," Marcus said coldly. "Drop the gun or I drop you." "He took her from me," Ryan's voice cracked. "She was mine and he took her." "I was never yours." Lena's voice cut through the chaos like a blade. All eyes turned to her. "I was never yours, Ryan. I was a person you controlled, abused, and destroyed. And I left because I deserved better." "Lena, get back upstairs," Adrian gritted out from the floor. But Lena ignored him. She moved closer to Ryan, her fear transforming into something harder. Anger. Pure, righteous fury. "You want to shoot someone? Shoot me. That's what this is really about, isn't it? Punishing me for leaving, for choosing myself over you." She stopped a few feet away, her eyes locked on Ryan's. "So do it. Pull the trigger. Prove that you're exactly the monster I always knew you were." "Lena!" Adrian's warning. "Shut up!" Ryan swung the gun toward her, and Lena heard Marcus curse, heard Adrian try to move despite his injury. But she didn't flinch. "You're pathetic," she said quietly. "You spent 2 years trying to make me small enough to fit into your broken idea of love. But I'm not small, Ryan. I never was. You just couldn't see that because you were too busy trying to own me." "I loved you," Ryan whispered, tears streaming down his face. "No, you loved controlling me. There's a difference." Lena took another step forward. "And you know what? I pity you, because you're going to spend the rest of your life alone wondering why everyone leaves, never understanding that it's because you destroy everything you touch." Ryan's hand wavered. The gun lowered slightly. "It's over, Ryan," Lena said softly. "Put down the gun. Let them arrest you. Face what you've done. It's the only way you'll ever have a chance at becoming something other than this." For a moment, she thought she'd reached him. Thought maybe some part of the man she'd first met was still in there, capable of making a better choice. Then his face hardened and the gun came back up. Marcus fired first. The sound was deafening in the enclosed space. Ryan went down hard, the gun clattering from his hand. He wasn't dead. Marcus was too professional for that. But he was bleeding from his thigh, screaming in pain and shock. Police sirens wailed outside. Footsteps pounded on the stairs. Officers burst through the door, weapons drawn, shouting commands. Lena stood frozen, watching as they swarmed Ryan, cuffed him, dragged him toward an ambulance. She watched as paramedics descended on Adrian, assessing his shoulder wound, starting an IV. She watched as Detective Chen appeared, her expression grim but unsurprised. "Miss Carter," Chen said quietly, "we need to talk." But Lena couldn't respond, couldn't move, couldn't process what had just happened. Adrian had been shot. Ryan had tried to kill them both. Everything had exploded into violence exactly the way she'd feared. "Lena." Adrian's voice, strained but steady. "Look at me." She turned. He was being loaded onto a stretcher, his face pale, but his eyes sharp and focused on her. "I'm okay," he said. "It's a through and through. I'll be fine." "You got shot." "I've had worse." His attempt at a smile was weak. "Go with Chen, answer her questions. Tell her the truth. I'll see you at the hospital." Lena nodded numbly as they wheeled him out. Then she turned to Detective Chen and prepared to relive the worst night of her life one more time. The police station interrogation room was exactly as cold and sterile as Lena had imagined. Gray walls, fluorescent lights that buzzed faintly overhead, a metal table bolted to the floor. Detective Chen sat across from her, a recorder between them, her expression professionally neutral. "Start from the beginning," Chen said. "What woke you up?" Lena wrapped her hands around the styrofoam cup of terrible coffee someone had given her. Her hands were still shaking. Shouting, glass breaking. I was asleep in Adrian's apartment, and then he was moving, grabbing a gun, telling me to lock the door. You were sleeping in Mr. Voss's private quarters? Yes. And the nature of your relationship with him is what exactly? Lena met Chen's eyes directly. He's someone who helped me when I had nowhere else to go. Someone who made me feel safe for the first time in 2 years. Someone I care about. Chen made a note. Did you see Mr. Blake enter the premises? No. I stayed upstairs like Adrian told me to. But I heard him. Heard him shouting for me, demanding I come down. Lena's voice steadied as she continued. He was drunk, angry, saying Adrian had stolen me from him. And what made you decide to come downstairs despite being told to stay put? I heard a gunshot. I thought Adrian was hurt. I thought... Lena's voice cracked. I thought Ryan had killed him. So you ran toward the danger. I ran toward someone I cared about who was in trouble. Wouldn't you? Chen's expression softened almost imperceptibly. What did you see when you got downstairs? Lena described it all. Adrian on the ground bleeding, Ryan with the gun, Marcus holding his weapon steady, the wild desperation in Ryan's eyes. She described confronting him, trying to talk him down, the moment when she'd seen him make the choice to raise the gun again. You could have gotten yourself killed, Chen said quietly. I know, but I also knew that if I didn't try to reach him, Marcus was going to shoot him, or Adrian was going to do something he couldn't take back once he healed. I wanted to give Ryan one last chance to be human. And he chose violence anyway. Yes. Lena's hands tightened around the cup. He always chose violence. That was the problem. Chen leaned back in her chair, studying Lena with an expression that was part cop, part woman who'd seen too many cases like this. I've been doing this job for 12 years. I've seen a lot of domestic violence situations. Most of them don't end with the victim standing between an armed abuser and certain death trying to talk him down. I'm not most victims. No, you're not. Chen turned off the recorder. Off the record, Ryan Blake is going to prison for a long time. Attempted murder, assault with a deadly weapon, violation of a restraining order. Even with a good lawyer, he's looking at 20 years minimum. Relief washed over Lena so powerfully that she felt dizzy. Good. But there's something you need to understand. The DA is going to look very closely at Adrian Voss and his role in all of this. There are questions about whether he escalated the situation, whether his involvement provoked Blake into taking extreme action. That's ridiculous. Adrian was protecting me. Maybe. But his methods weren't exactly conventional. The surveillance, the information campaign to destroy Blake's reputation, the armed security. Chen's gaze was steady. Adrian Voss is a complicated man with complicated connections. The DA wants to make sure he didn't manipulate this situation for his own purposes. Lena felt anger flare in her chest. His purpose was keeping me safe from a man who spent 2 years abusing me. If that's manipulation, then I'm grateful for it. I believe you, but I'm not the one who needs convincing. Chen stood. You're free to go. There's a car waiting to take you to the hospital. But Lena, be careful. Men like Adrian Voss don't help people without expecting something in return. He's not expecting anything. Then he's even more unusual than I thought. Chen opened the door. Good luck. You're going to need it. The hospital was a blur of harsh lighting and antiseptic smell. A uniformed officer directed Lena to the surgical wing, where Margaret waited in a private room, her face drawn with worry. How is he? Lena asked immediately. In surgery, the bullet went through his shoulder, missed the major arteries, but there was muscle damage. They're repairing it now. Margaret pulled Lena into a hug. How are you? I don't know. Numb, maybe? Lena sank into one of the uncomfortable plastic chairs. Is this real? Did Ryan actually show up with a gun and try to kill us? Very real, honey. Margaret sat beside her. Marcus is giving his statement to the police. The security footage from the bar shows everything. Ryan breaking in, threatening Adrian, shooting him. It's all documented. Good. Let them see exactly what kind of man he is. They sat in silence for a while, the only sound the beeping of monitors from other rooms and the occasional announcement over the hospital PA system. Lena's mind kept replaying the moment when Ryan had raised the gun, the look in his eyes when he'd made the choice to fire. She'd seen her own death in that moment, and somehow, impossibly, she'd survived. 2 hours later, a surgeon emerged, still in his scrubs. "Family of Adrian Voss?" Lena and Margaret both stood. "How is he?" "Surgery went well. We repaired the damage to his deltoid and rotator cuff. He'll need physical therapy, but with proper care, he should make a full recovery." The surgeon pulled off his cap. "He's in recovery now. Once he's stable, you can see him." "Thank you," Lena breathed. It was another hour before they were allowed into his room. Adrian lay in the hospital bed, looking pale and vulnerable in a way Lena had never seen. His shoulder was heavily bandaged, an IV line running into his arm, monitors tracking his vitals. But his eyes were open and clear when they entered. "There she is," he said, his voice rough but steady. "The woman who tried to get herself killed saving me." "I was saving you?" Lena moved to his bedside. "You're the one who got shot." "Because I was trying to keep Ryan from shooting you." Adrian's good hand found hers. "Don't ever do that again. Don't ever put yourself between me and danger. Then don't get shot for me." "Can't promise that." His thumb traced circles on her palm. "How are you?" "Really?" "Terrified, relieved, angry, all of it." Lena sank into the chair beside his bed. "The detective thinks the DA might investigate you, try to prove you manipulated the situation somehow. Let them investigate. They won't find anything because there's nothing to find." Adrian's jaw tightened. "I protected you, that's all." "That's what I told her." Lena leaned forward. "Adrian, I'm so sorry. If I hadn't come to your bar that night, if I hadn't dragged you into my mess—" "Stop. You didn't drag me into anything. I chose to help you. I'd choose it again in a heartbeat." His gray eyes locked onto hers with an intensity that made her breath catch. "You're not a burden, Lena. You're not a problem that needs solving. You're someone who deserves better than what life's given you. And if helping you means taking a bullet, then so be it." Tears spilled down Lena's cheeks. "You could have died. But I didn't, and neither did you. That's what matters." Adrian squeezed her hand. "Ryan's done now. Really done. He's going to prison, and he's never touching you again." "I know." Lena wiped at her tears with her free hand. "It's over. After 2 years of fear, it's finally over." "So what happens now?" Adrian asked quietly. "What do you want, Lena? Not what you think I want to hear. What do you actually want for yourself?" Lena thought about that. For so long, her wants had been dictated by Ryan. What he wanted her to wear, what he wanted her to eat, what he wanted her to do with her time. She'd forgotten how to want things for herself. But sitting there in that hospital room, holding the hand of a man who'd taken a bullet for her, she knew exactly what she wanted. "I want to rebuild my life, find a job, get my own place, reconnect with my sister." She paused. "But I also want you in it, if you'll have me." Adrian's smile was small but genuine. "That's a dangerous choice." "You're not dangerous to me." "You sure about that?" His expression turned serious. "My world is complicated, Lena. I have enemies, people who'd use you to get to me. I have business dealings that sometimes cross ethical lines. I can protect you from Ryan, but I can't protect you from everything." "I'm not asking you to protect me from everything. I'm asking you to be honest with me, to let me make my own choices, to treat me like an equal instead of something fragile." Lena met his gaze steadily. "Can you do that?" Adrian was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded. "I can try. It won't be perfect. I'll probably slip up, try to control situations when I should step back, but I'll try. That's all I'm asking." Lena leaned in and kissed him gently, careful not to jostle his injured shoulder. "We'll figure it out together." Margaret cleared her throat from the doorway, reminding them they weren't alone. "Hate to interrupt, but visiting hours are almost over, and you, boss, need rest." Adrian made a face. "I'm fine." "You were shot 4 hours ago. You're not fine." Margaret turned to Lena. "Come on, honey. Let's get you back to the bar. Adrian's got round-the-clock security here, and Marcus is coordinating everything from the ground floor. He's safer than Fort Knox." Lena wanted to argue, wanted to stay, but exhaustion was catching up with her. The adrenaline crash was hitting hard, and she could barely keep her eyes open. "I'll be back tomorrow," she promised Adrian. "I'll be here." Unfortunately, He squeezed her hand one more time. Get some sleep, Lena. Real sleep. We've got a lot of work ahead of us. The next few days passed in a strange combination of chaos and waiting. Adrian remained in the hospital for observation while his shoulder healed. Ryan was arraigned from his own hospital bed, charged with multiple felonies, and denied bail after the prosecutor argued he was a flight risk and a danger to others. Victoria Lang was coordinating Lena's testimony for the eventual trial, preparing her for what would be months of legal proceedings. And Lena started the slow, difficult process of rebuilding her life. Her first call was to her sister Emma, who she hadn't spoken to in over a year. The conversation was tearful and difficult and healing all at once. I knew something was wrong, Emma said, her voice breaking over the phone. I knew Ryan was bad news, but you wouldn't listen. You cut me out. He made me cut you out, Lena corrected gently. He made me believe you were trying to control me, trying to ruin our relationship. I'm so sorry, Em. I'm so sorry for all of it. You have nothing to be sorry for. He did this, not you. Emma sniffled. Are you safe now? Really safe? Yes, I'm safe. Lena glanced around the room above the bar that had become her sanctuary. There's someone helping me. His name's Adrian. And he's good to you? He is. Very good. Lena smiled despite everything. You'd like him, I think. He's intense and complicated and maybe a little dangerous, but he makes me feel safe. Then I already love him. Emma's voice strengthened. I want to come see you. Once everything settles, I want to meet this man and make sure he's treating my little sister right. I'd like that. I've missed you. They talked for another hour, catching up on lost time, making tentative plans for Emma to visit once the legal chaos settled. When Lena hung up, she felt lighter than she had in years. Margaret found her crying happy tears in the kitchen an hour later. Good news? Margaret asked, setting down 2 cups of tea. The best. I talked to my sister, really talked, for the first time in over a year. Lena wiped her eyes. It felt like coming home. Family's important. Glad you're getting yours back. Margaret sipped her tea. Speaking of family, Adrian's being released tomorrow. Doctor says he can finish recovery at home as long as he takes it easy and does his physical therapy. That's wonderful. Lena felt relief wash over her. He must be going crazy being stuck in that hospital bed. Driving the nurses insane, from what I hear. Margaret smiled. He's been running his business from his phone, barking orders at Marcus, trying to micromanage everything from his hospital room. Man doesn't know how to rest. Sounds like Adrian. Yeah, well, he's going to have to learn. Doctor was very clear. 6 weeks of limited activity, no heavy lifting, no stress. Margaret gave Lena a meaningful look. Think you can help enforce that? I can try, but you know him better than I do. Does he ever actually follow doctor's orders? Not once in the 8 years I've known him, Margaret laughed. But maybe for you, he'll make an exception. The next afternoon, Lena accompanied Margaret to pick up Adrian from the hospital. He looked better than he had in days, color back in his face, moving more easily despite the sling supporting his injured arm. But there was a tightness around his eyes that spoke of pain he was trying to hide. You don't have to pretend it doesn't hurt, Lena said as she helped him into the car. I'm not pretending, I'm managing. Adrian settled into the back seat with a barely suppressed wince. There's a difference. If you say so. Lena slid in beside him while Margaret took the driver's seat. But if you tear your stitches trying to be tough, I'm going to be very angry with you. Noted. Adrian's hand found hers, and they drove back to the Raven room in comfortable silence. The bar had been cleaned and repaired since the shooting. New glass in the windows, fresh paint on the walls, no visible evidence of the violence that had occurred there. But Lena could still see it in her mind. Ryan standing in the middle of the room with murder in his eyes. Adrian bleeding on the floor, the moment when everything could have ended differently. Hey, Adrian's voice was soft. You okay? Just remembering. Yeah, me too. His thumb traced patterns on her hand. But it's over now. Ryan's in jail. You're safe. We're both alive. That's what matters. They got Adrian settled in his apartment behind the office. Margaret fussed over him like a worried mother, making sure he had everything he needed, his medications properly organized, physical therapy exercises written out clearly. Adrian tolerated it with surprising patience, though Lena caught him rolling his eyes more than once. Finally, Margaret left them alone with strict instructions that Adrian was to rest and Lena was to make sure he actually did. "She means well," Adrian said once the door closed behind her. "She does. And she's right. You need to rest." Lena helped him settle onto the couch, propping pillows behind him. "When's your next physical therapy session?" "Tomorrow. And the day after. And probably every day for the next month." Adrian grimaced. "I hate this. Being weak, being limited, not being able to do things for myself." "You're not weak. You're healing. There's a difference." Lena sat beside him carefully. "And you don't have to do everything alone anymore. That's what I'm here for." Adrian looked at her for a long moment, something vulnerable flickering in his eyes. "I'm not used to letting people help me." "I know, but maybe it's time to learn." Lena leaned her head on his good shoulder. "We're in this together, remember? You fight for me, I fight for you. That includes fighting you when you try to do too much too soon." "You're going to be a pain in my ass, aren't you?" "Absolutely," Lena smiled. "Get used to it." They sat like that for a while, just being together in the quiet. Outside, the city hummed with its usual chaos, but in that moment, in that room, everything felt still and safe. "Tell me about your plans," Adrian said eventually. "You said you wanted to rebuild your life. What does that look like?" Lena had been thinking about this. "I need to find work. Something that's mine, that I'm good at, that has nothing to do with Ryan or my past. I used to be in marketing before I met him. I was actually pretty good at it." "What kind of marketing?" "Digital mostly. Social media campaigns, brand development, content strategy. I worked for a small firm that did work for local businesses." Lena's voice grew stronger as she talked about it. "I loved it. Creating stories, building connections between brands and people. It felt meaningful." "Why'd you stop?" "Ryan convinced me I wasn't good at it, that I was wasting my time, that I should focus on supporting his career instead of chasing my own dreams." Lena's jaw tightened. "By the time I realized how much I'd given up, it felt too late to go back." "It's not too late." Adrian shifted to look at her directly. "You're what, 27? You have decades ahead of you, plenty of time to rebuild a career." "I'm 28, and I know logically that I have time, but it's scary, starting over from nothing. I don't even have a current resume or references, or you have skills, experience, and you're smart and creative and capable of anything you set your mind to." Adrian's voice was firm. "The rest is just logistics. We can figure out logistics." "We?" "If you want help, I'm not trying to control your career or tell you what to do, but I know people. I can make introductions, open doors. What you do with those opportunities is entirely up to you." Lena considered that. Part of her wanted to refuse, to insist on doing it completely on her own to prove she could. But that was pride talking, not sense. If Adrian could help, why shouldn't she accept? "Okay," she said, "I'd appreciate introductions, but I want to earn any job I get. No special treatment just because I'm with you." "Wouldn't dream of it." Adrian's smile was warm. "Though for the record, once people meet you and see what you're capable of, they're not going to care about your connection to me. You'll stand on your own merit." "You have a lot of faith in me for someone who's only known me a few weeks." "I'm a good judge of character. Comes with the territory." Adrian's hand cupped her face. "I know strength when I see it, Lena, and you're one of the strongest people I've ever met." Lena felt tears prick her eyes. "I don't feel strong. I feel like I'm barely holding it together." "That's what strength looks like sometimes. Not some grand heroic gesture, but just getting up every day and choosing to keep going even when it's hard." Adrian's thumb brushed across her cheek. "You left an abusive relationship with nothing but the clothes on your back. You trusted a stranger to help you. You stood up to Ryan even when he had a gun pointed at you. If that's not strength, I don't know what is." Lena kissed him then, pouring gratitude and affection and something deeper into the contact. Adrian responded despite his injury, his good arm pulling her closer, his lips moving against hers with a hunger that had nothing to do with control and everything to do with connection. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Adrian rested his forehead against hers. "I want you to stay. Here. With me. Not just until you get back on your feet, but permanently. If you want." Lena's heart stuttered, Adrian, I know it's fast. I know we barely know each other. I know you just escaped one relationship and probably shouldn't jump into another. Adrian's voice was raw with honesty. But I also know that when you're not here, I notice. When you're in danger, I'd do anything to protect you. When you smile, it feels like something important just happened. And I don't want to waste time pretending I don't feel that. I feel it too, Lena admitted. It terrifies me, but I feel it. So stay. Not because you need protection or because you have nowhere else to go. Stay because you want to. Because this, whatever this is between us, is worth exploring. Lena thought about everything that had happened since she'd run into the Raven Room that stormy night. How Adrian had given her safety without demanding anything in return. How he'd fought for her, protected her, nearly died for her. How he made her feel seen and valued and strong. But more than that, she thought about how he listened when she talked. How he asked her opinion before making decisions that affected her. How he'd promised to try to give her space instead of control. How he was learning to trust her the same way she was learning to trust him. This wasn't Ryan. This wasn't control disguised as love. This was something real and complicated and worth the risk. Okay, she said softly, I'll stay. Adrian's smile was like sunrise, slow and warm and transformative. Yeah? Yeah. Lena laughed, feeling lighter than she had in years. But I'm getting my own job and my own money and my own independence. I'm staying because I choose to, not because I have to. I wouldn't want it any other way. Adrian pulled her close again, careful of his shoulder. We'll figure this out together. All of it. The logistics, the boundaries, the complicated reality of building something real instead of something safe. Together, Lena agreed. Over the next 2 weeks, they fell into a routine. Lena helped Adrian with his physical therapy exercises, made sure he took his medications on time, and generally kept him from overdoing it as his shoulder healed. In return, Adrian made introductions to people in the marketing world, helped her update her resume and portfolio, and gave her the space and resources to rebuild her professional life. She had 3 interviews in the first week. 2 were polite rejections, but the third was with a boutique agency that specialized in storytelling for small businesses. The owner, a woman named Sarah Chen, no relation to the detective, was sharp, creative, and immediately interested in Lena's ideas for their upcoming campaigns. I can offer you a contract position to start, Sarah said at the end of the interview. 3 months, with the possibility of going permanent if it's a good fit. The pay isn't spectacular, but the work is interesting and you'd have a lot of creative freedom. I'll take it, Lena said without hesitation. She started the following Monday. The work was challenging and demanding and exactly what she needed. She threw herself into campaigns for a local coffee roaster, a vintage clothing shop, and a non-profit that helped domestic violence survivors, the last one hitting particularly close to home. Adrian watched her transformation with quiet pride. She grew more confident with each passing day, more sure of herself, more willing to voice opinions and push back when she disagreed with him. It was exactly what he'd hoped for, even when it meant having actual arguments about things like whether she needed a security detail when she went to work. I'm not having you followed, Lena said firmly during one such argument. Ryan's in jail. The threat is over. The threat from Ryan is over, but you're with me now, and that comes with complications. Adrian's jaw was set in that stubborn way that meant he wasn't going to let this go easily. There are people who might try to use you to get to me. Then we'll deal with that if it happens. But I'm not living in a bubble, Adrian. I'm not trading one cage for another, even if this one has better intentions. Adrian opened his mouth to argue, then stopped, took a breath, visibly forced himself to step back. You're right. I'm sorry. I'm doing the thing I promised not to do. You are, Lena's voice softened. I know it's hard. I know your instinct is to protect. But I need you to trust that I can take care of myself. I do trust you. It's the rest of the world I don't trust. I know, but you can't protect me from everything, and you'll drive yourself crazy trying. Lena moved closer, taking his hands. How about a compromise? I'll check in with you regularly when I'm out. I'll pay attention to my surroundings. I'll take basic safety precautions. But no surveillance, no guards, no tracking my every move. Adrian clearly didn't like it, but he nodded. Okay. But if anything feels off, anything at all, you call me immediately. Deal. It was these small negotiations, these constant recalibrations of boundaries and trust that slowly built the foundation of something real between them. They learned each other's rhythms, their triggers, their needs. Adrian learned to ask instead of assume. Lena learned to accept help without seeing it as a loss of independence. 6 weeks after the shooting, Ryan's preliminary hearing took place. Lena testified, her voice steady and clear as she described the abuse, the escalation, the final violent confrontation. Ryan's lawyer tried to paint her as unstable, as someone who'd manipulated both Ryan and Adrian for her own gain, but Victoria Lang destroyed that narrative with surgical precision, presenting medical records, witness testimony, and security footage that told the real story. The judge bound Ryan over for trial and added additional charges. His lawyer tried to negotiate a plea deal, but the DA refused. They wanted the full 25 years, and with the evidence they had, they were confident they'd get it. Lena walked out of the courthouse feeling lighter than she had in years. Emma was waiting outside, having flown in to support her sister. Adrian stood beside her, his shoulder finally healed enough to move without the sling, his presence solid and grounding. "How do you feel?" Emma asked, pulling Lena into a hug. "Free," Lena said simply. "For the first time in forever, I feel free." That night, they had dinner together, Lena, Adrian, Emma, and Margaret. They ate at a small Italian restaurant near the bar, talking and laughing like normal people with normal lives. Emma interrogated Adrian with the fierce protectiveness of an older sister, asking pointed questions about his intentions and his ability to treat Lena right. Adrian handled it with a grace and honesty, never deflecting or making promises he couldn't keep. By the end of the night, Emma pulled Lena aside. "Okay, I like him. He's intense and a little scary, but he clearly adores you, and more importantly, he respects you." "He does," Lena smiled. "It's different than anything I've known before, complicated and messy and real." "Real is good. Real is what you deserve." Emma squeezed her hand. "I'm proud of you, Lena, for leaving, for surviving, for building something new. You're the bravest person I know." Lena felt tears prick her eyes. "I'm just doing what I have to do." "No, you're doing what you choose to do. There's a difference." Emma pulled her into another hug. "And that's everything." Later, after Emma had gone back to her hotel and Margaret had retired for the night, Lena and Adrian sat together in his apartment. The city lights glittered outside the window, casting shadows across the room. "Your sister likes me," Adrian said, sounding faintly surprised. "She does, though she threatened to castrate you if you ever hurt me, so don't get too comfortable." Lena laughed at his expression. "I'm paraphrasing, but that was the general sentiment." "Noted." Adrian pulled her closer. "For what it's worth, I have no intention of hurting you." "I know, but intentions and reality don't always align." Lena looked up at him. "We're going to mess this up sometimes. We're going to have fights and misunderstandings and moments where our damage makes us say the wrong thing. That's inevitable." "Probably. But as long as we keep talking, keep being honest, keep choosing each other even when it's hard, I think we'll be okay." Lena's hand found his. "I think we can build something that lasts." Adrian kissed her then, slow and deep, a promise written in the contact. When they broke apart, his eyes were serious. "I love you, Lena Carter. I know it's fast and probably crazy and definitely complicated, but I love you." Lena's breath caught. She'd been waiting to hear those words, afraid to hope for them, terrified of what they meant. But now that they were out there, hanging in the air between them, she realized she'd known for a while. "I love you too," she whispered, "even though you're bossy and overprotective and probably a little bit dangerous. Especially because I'm those things." Adrian's smile was warm and real and completely unguarded. "We're quite a pair, aren't we?" "The best kind of disaster." Lena laughed and kissed him again. And in that moment, wrapped in the arms of a man who'd saved her and been saved by her in turn, Lena finally understood what it meant to choose love instead of fear, partnership instead of control, a future instead of just survival. The road ahead wouldn't be easy. There would be Ryan's trial to endure, Adrian's complicated world to navigate, the ongoing work of healing from trauma and learning to trust. But for the first time, Lena felt ready for all of it, because she wasn't facing it alone. And she wasn't facing it as a victim anymore. She was facing it as herself, strong, capable, and finally, completely free. 3 months later, winter settled over the city with a crisp clarity that made everything feel sharp and new. Lena stood in front of the bathroom mirror in Adrian's apartment, adjusting the collar of her burgundy blazer. Her reflection showed someone she barely recognized from 6 months ago, confident, polished, alive in a way she'd forgotten was possible. Her phone buzzed with a text from Sarah. "Client loved the campaign. They're signing for another 6 months. You're officially indispensable." Lena smiled and typed back a quick thank you before grabbing her bag. She found Adrian in the kitchen, making coffee with the kind of focused intensity he brought to everything. His shoulder had healed completely, though she'd caught him rubbing it absently when he thought she wasn't looking. "Big day," he asked, handing her a cup exactly how she liked it. 2 sugars, splash of cream. "The Morrison pitch. If we land them, it's the biggest account the agency's had in 2 years. Lena took a sip, savoring the warmth. "Sarah's putting a lot of faith in my strategy." "She should. Your work is exceptional." Adrian kissed her forehead. "You'll kill it." "You have to say that. You're contractually obligated as my boyfriend." "I'm saying it because it's true. The boyfriend thing just means I get to be smug about it when you succeed." His smile turned serious. "Though speaking of big days, Victoria called. The trial starts next week. Final jury selection is today." The coffee suddenly tasted bitter. Lena set down the cup, her brief moment of normalcy evaporating. "Already?" Ryan's lawyer tried for another continuance, but the judge denied it. "They're out of delays." Adrian's hand found hers. "You ready for this?" Lena wanted to say yes, wanted to project the same confidence she'd felt looking in the mirror moments ago, but the truth was more complicated. "I don't know. I've been preparing for months, but now that it's actually happening." "You're scared. Terrified." Lena's grip tightened on his hand. "What if the jury doesn't believe me? What if they think I'm making it all up, that I manipulated the situation somehow? Then Victoria will show them the medical records, the text messages, the security footage, and the testimony of 2 other women Ryan did the same thing to." Adrian's voice was firm. "The evidence is overwhelming, Lena. Ryan's going to prison. That's not in question." "Then why do I still feel like he has power over me?" Adrian pulled her close, and she let herself sink into his embrace, breathing in his familiar scent. "Because trauma doesn't follow logic. Because you spent 2 years learning to fear him, and that doesn't disappear just because he's locked up." His hand moved through her hair in a soothing rhythm. "But every day his power gets a little smaller. Every choice you make that's yours alone chips away at what he took from you. And when this trial is over, when he's sentenced and you never have to see his face again, you'll take back even more." Lena pulled back to look at him. "What if I fall apart on the stand?" "Then you fall apart. Victoria will give you time to compose yourself, and you'll continue. Or you won't. And the other evidence will speak for itself." Adrian cupped her face. "But I think you're stronger than you give yourself credit for. I think you're going to walk into that courtroom and tell your truth with the same courage you showed the night you confronted him with a gun in his hand." "That was different. I was running on pure adrenaline." "Maybe. But you also made a choice in that moment, to stand your ground instead of running, to try to reach him instead of letting someone else handle it. That took strength, Lena. The same strength that got you out in the first place." Adrian's thumb brushed across her cheek. "You're going to be fine, and I'll be there every single day right behind you, reminding you that you're not alone." Lena kissed him softly, gratefully. "I love you. You know that, right?" "I know." "I love you too." He glanced at the clock. "Now go nail that pitch. Show Morrison what they've been missing." The presentation went better than Lena had dared hope. The Morrison executives were engaged, asking smart questions, clearly impressed by the comprehensive strategy she'd developed for their brand relaunch. By the end of the 2-hour meeting, they were already talking about implementation timelines and budget allocation. Sarah walked Lena out afterward, her expression equal parts proud and excited. "That was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. The way you anticipated their concerns and addressed them before they could even voice them, that's the mark of someone who really understands this business." "I just tried to think about what I'd want to know if I were in their position." Lena felt the familiar buzz of professional satisfaction, the kind she'd forgotten she was capable of feeling. "Do you think they'll sign?" "I think they'd be idiots not to." And the Morrison family didn't build a $50 million company by being idiots. Sarah squeezed her shoulder. Go celebrate. Take the afternoon. You've earned it. Lena left the office feeling like she was floating. She'd done it. Landed a major account entirely on her own merit, with no help from Adrian's connections or influence. This was hers. Completely, undeniably hers. She was heading back toward the Raven room when her phone rang. Victoria's name flashed on the screen. Victoria, hi. Adrian said jury selection is today? Finished an hour ago. We've got a good panel, people who will listen to the evidence instead of buying Ryan's victim narrative. Victoria's voice was crisp, professional. But that's not why I'm calling. Ryan's lawyer reached out. They want to negotiate a plea deal. Lena stopped walking, her heart suddenly pounding. What kind of deal? 15 years, eligible for parole in 10. He'd plead guilty to assault with a deadly weapon and the restraining order violation. The attempted murder charge would be reduced to aggravated assault. That's it? After everything he did, he'd only serve 10 years? Maybe less with good behavior. I know it's not what we want, but the DA thinks we should consider it. A plea deal means no trial, no cross-examination, no risk of a jury coming back with something lighter. Lena's mind raced. No trial meant no standing in front of Ryan, no reliving every terrible moment of their relationship in front of strangers. It meant closure, faster, but it also meant Ryan would get away with less than what he deserved. What do you think I should do? She asked. That's not my call. It's yours. Victoria's tone softened slightly. I can tell you that our case is strong, really strong. If we go to trial, I am confident we'll get a conviction on attempted murder, which carries 25 to life. But trials are unpredictable. Juries are unpredictable. A bird in the hand versus two in the bush. Can I think about it? You've got 24 hours. Ryan's lawyer wants an answer by tomorrow afternoon. Victoria paused. Talk to Adrian. Talk to your sister. Figure out what you need to move forward. Then call me. After hanging up, Lena stood on the sidewalk, people flowing around her like water around a stone. 10 years. In 10 years, Ryan would be 43, still young enough to rebuild a life. Still young enough to potentially hurt someone else. But she'd also be 38. Would she want to spend the next however many months trapped in a courtroom, reliving trauma, watching Ryan's lawyer try to tear her apart? Or did she want to close this chapter now, take the guaranteed conviction, and move on with her life? She walked the rest of the way to the bar in a daze. Adrian took one look at her face when she walked in and immediately led her to his office, closing the door behind them. What happened? Lena explained about the plea deal, watching his expression grow darker with each word. When she finished, he was quiet for a long moment, visibly struggling to control his anger. 10 years, he finally said, his voice tight. For 2 years of systematic abuse, for shooting me, for trying to kill you. 10 years. Victoria says our case is strong, that we'd probably get more if we went to trial. Probably. Adrian's jaw clenched. But not definitely. No, not definitely. Lena sank into the chair across from his desk. I don't know what to do. Part of me wants to fight, to make him face a jury, to make sure he gets everything he deserves. But another part just wants it over. I want to stop thinking about Ryan, stop having him take up space in my life. Adrian moved around the desk and crouched in front of her, taking her hands. Then that's your answer. This isn't about what Ryan deserves. It's about what you need. Is 10 years enough, though? What if he gets out and does this to someone else? That's not your responsibility. You can't carry the weight of every potential future Ryan might have. Adrian's voice was gentle but firm. You can only control your own choices, your own healing. If taking the plea deal means you get closure faster, if it means you don't have to spend months in trial reliving your worst memories, then that's what you do. You're not angry? You don't think I'm letting him off easy? I'm furious. I want Ryan to rot in prison for the rest of his miserable life. But that's my anger talking, not what's best for you. Adrian squeezed her hands. I'll support whatever you decide. If you want to take the deal, I'll be there. If you want to go to trial, I'll sit behind you every single day until it's over. Your choice, Lena. Always your choice. Lena leaned forward, resting her forehead against his. I want it over. I want to stop letting him control my life, even indirectly. I want to move forward. Then call Victoria. Tell her you'll take the deal. You're sure? I'm sure that you know what you need better than anyone else. Adrian kissed her softly. Make the call. I'll be right here. The plea hearing happened 3 days later in a courtroom that smelled like old wood and stale coffee. Lena sat in the front row between Adrian and Emma, her hands clasped so tightly her knuckles had gone white. Victoria sat at the prosecutor's table, reviewing notes with the DA. And then Ryan was brought in. Lena had prepared herself for this moment, but seeing him still hit like a punch to the chest. He looked diminished somehow, thinner, older, the cocky confidence that had once defined him completely gone. He wore an orange jumpsuit and handcuffs, his eyes downcast as the bailiff led him to stand beside his attorney. The judge entered, and everyone rose. Judge Martinez was a stern woman in her 60s with sharp eyes that missed nothing. She reviewed the plea agreement with meticulous care before looking at Ryan. Mr. Blake, you're pleading guilty to assault with a deadly weapon, aggravated assault, and violation of a restraining order. Do you understand the charges? Yes, Your Honor. Ryan's voice was hoarse. And you understand that by accepting this plea, you're waiving your right to a trial and admitting guilt to these crimes. Yes, Your Honor. The sentencing recommendation is 15 years with eligibility for parole in 10. Do you understand that this court is not bound by that recommendation and could impose a harsher sentence? Ryan's lawyer whispered something to him. Yes, Your Honor, I understand. Very well. Judge Martinez turned to the DA. Does the prosecution wish to make a statement? The DA stood, a tall black woman named Patricia Moore, who'd built her reputation on domestic violence cases. Your Honor, the people accept this plea with the understanding that it brings closure to the victim and ensures Mr. Blake will serve significant time for his crimes. However, we want it noted that Mr. Blake engaged in a pattern of escalating abuse over 2 years, culminating in a violent assault that nearly claimed 2 lives. This plea agreement should not be seen as leniency, but rather as consideration for the victim's well-being. Noted. Judge Martinez's gaze moved to Victoria. Does the victim wish to make a statement? Lena hadn't planned to speak. The whole point of the plea deal was to avoid this, to avoid having to face Ryan in open court. But something in the judge's question made her stand. Yes, Your Honor, I'd like to say something. Adrian's hand squeezed hers before letting go. Emma whispered, You've got this. And then Lena was walking forward, her legs somehow steady, despite the fear coursing through her. She stood at the podium, looking not at Ryan, but at the judge. My name is Lena Carter. For 2 years, Ryan Blake made me believe I was nothing without him. He isolated me from everyone who cared about me. He controlled every aspect of my life. What I wore, what I ate, where I went, who I talked to. He hit me, choked me, violated me, and made me believe it was my fault. Her voice grew stronger with each word. When I finally found the courage to leave, he hunted me down. He filed false reports claiming I was unstable. He showed up at the place where I'd found safety and threatened the man protecting me. And when words weren't enough, he brought a gun and tried to kill us both. Now she let herself look at Ryan. He was staring at the table, refusing to meet her eyes. I'm accepting this plea deal not because I think you deserve leniency. You don't. I'm accepting it because I refuse to give you any more of my life than you've already taken. I refuse to spend months in a courtroom while you and your lawyer try to destroy my credibility and twist the truth. I'm done letting you have power over me. Lena turned back to the judge. I want it noted that Ryan Blake is dangerous, that he has a history of abusing women, manipulating systems, and refusing to take responsibility for his actions. 10 years is not enough for what he did. But it's enough for me to rebuild my life without him in it, and that's what matters. She walked back to her seat on trembling legs. Adrian's arm immediately went around her shoulders, grounding her. Emma grabbed her hand and held on tight. Judge Martinez studied Ryan with an expression of barely concealed contempt. Mr. Blake, you're a coward and a predator. You systematically destroyed a woman who trusted you, and when she had the courage to escape, you tried to murder her and the man who helped her. The only reason you're standing here accepting a plea deal instead of facing a jury is because your victim has more grace than you could ever comprehend. Ryan's lawyer put a hand on his arm, probably warning him to stay silent. I'm accepting this plea agreement, the judge continued, but I'm sentencing you to the maximum allowed under its terms. 15 years in state prison, no eligibility for parole until you've served a minimum of 12 years. And I'm recommending to the parole board that they consider the full pattern of abuse documented in this case when evaluating any future parole applications. Ryan's head snapped up. But the deal said 10. The deal said eligible for parole in 10 years, with the possibility of serving up to 15. I'm exercising my discretion to ensure you serve closer to the maximum. Judge Martinez's voice was ice. You're fortunate Ms. Carter chose mercy. I would not have been so generous. Bailiff, remove the defendant. As Ryan was led away, he finally looked at Lena. There was no remorse in his eyes, no recognition of what he'd done. Just anger and resentment, the same expression she'd seen 1,000 times before, but this time it didn't touch her. This time she was free of it. Outside the courthouse, reporters had gathered, having gotten wind of the case. Victoria handled them with professional efficiency while Adrian guided Lena and Emma to his car. You were incredible, Emma said once they were safely inside. The way you stood up there and just owned your truth. Lena, I've never been more proud of you. I didn't plan it. I needed him to know that he didn't win, that I'm not the broken thing he tried to turn me into. You're not. You're the strongest person I know. Emma hugged her tight. And now it's over. Really, truly over. Adrian drove them back to the Raven room in silence, his hand finding Lena's whenever he didn't need it on the wheel. When they arrived, Margaret was waiting with champagne and an elaborate spread of food. Heard the news, she said, pulling Lena into a hug. 12 years minimum. That's a victory, honey. It is. Lena felt the truth of it settling into her bones. It really is. They celebrated quietly. Lena, Adrian, Emma, Margaret, and even Marcus, who showed up with an awkward smile and congratulations. It felt surreal, marking the end of something so terrible with champagne and laughter. But it also felt right, like reclaiming joy from the ashes of trauma. Later, after everyone had left and it was just Lena and Adrian in his apartment, she stood at the window looking out at the city. Adrian came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. How do you feel? He asked. Lighter, like I can finally breathe all the way. Lena leaned back against him. Is it strange that I almost feel sorry for him? No, it means you're human, that you didn't let what he did turn you cruel. Adrian's lips brushed her temple. But don't waste too much pity. Ryan made his choices. Now he lives with the consequences. I know. And I'm glad he's going to prison. I am. But I also can't help thinking about what broke inside him to make him like that. What happened that turned him into someone who could hurt people and feel justified doing it? That's not your burden to carry. Adrian turned her to face him. You can have compassion for the broken parts of him without excusing what he did or taking responsibility for his healing. Some people are just broken, Lena. And sometimes the best thing we can do is make sure they can't break anyone else. Lena nodded, knowing he was right. So what happens now? Now that the trial's over and Ryan's locked away and I don't have to be looking over my shoulder anymore? Now? We live, really live, not just survive. Adrian's smile was warm. You keep killing it at your job. I keep running my admittedly questionable business empire. We figure out this thing between us without the shadow of Ryan Blake hanging over everything. That sounds terrifying. Good terrifying or bad terrifying? Lena thought about it. Good, I think. The kind of terrifying that means possibility instead of danger. I can work with that. Adrian kissed her, slow and thorough. I love you, Lena Carter. Not because you need saving or because you're some project to fix. I love you because you're brave and strong and you make me want to be a better man. You are a better man. With me. Lena smiled against his lips. You're learning to let go, to trust, to build something real instead of just protecting your empire. See? Growth. Adrian's expression turned serious. I want to build a life with you, not just this temporary thing while you get back on your feet. An actual life. Partnership. Future. All of it. Lena's heart stuttered. Adrian, I'm not proposing. Not yet. We've got time for that. His hand cupped her face. But I'm saying I want that future. With you. When you're ready. When I'm ready, Lena echoed, letting the words settle. A future. Not just survival or recovery, but an actual life stretching out ahead of her, full of possibilities she was free to choose. I want that too. Maybe not tomorrow or next month, but eventually. I want to build something real with you. Eventually works for me. Adrian pulled her close, and they stood like that, wrapped together, looking out at the city that had witnessed both her destruction and her rebirth. 6 months later, spring arrived with the kind of warmth that made everything feel new again. Lena stood in the empty apartment on the third floor of a renovated brownstone, sunlight streaming through tall windows, and felt something click into place. "This is it," she said to Adrian, who was examining the crown molding with a critical eye. "This is the one." "You sure? The kitchen's smaller than the last place we looked at." "I don't care. Look at the light. Look at this space." Lena turned in a slow circle, already imagining how she'd arrange furniture, where she'd put her desk, which wall would be perfect for the painting Emma had given her. "This feels like home." Adrian smiled, that soft expression he only showed her. "Then let's make an offer." They'd been looking at apartments for the past month, searching for a place that was theirs, instead of just his or just temporary. Lena had saved enough from her salary to contribute to rent and utilities, insisting on splitting costs despite Adrian's protests that he could easily afford to cover everything. "It's not about what you can afford," she'd argued. "It's about this being ours. Equal partners, equal investment." He'd eventually conceded, recognizing her need for financial independence. And now, standing in this sun-filled apartment that felt like possibility made tangible, Lena felt the last piece of her old life fall away. The apartment in Ryan's name that had been a cage, the room above the bar that had been a sanctuary, and now this, a space she was choosing, paying for, making her own. "I can't believe this is my life now," she said quietly. Adrian came to stand beside her. "What do you mean?" "A year ago I was trapped, scared, convinced I'd never escape. And now look, I have a job I love, an apartment I'm choosing, a man who treats me like an equal." Lena turned to him. "Sometimes I wake up and have to remind myself this is real, that I actually made it out." "You did more than make it out. You thrived." Adrian's hand found hers. "You took everything Ryan tried to take from you and you built it back stronger. That's not luck, Lena. That's you. It's also you. You gave me the chance to rebuild. I gave you a safe place to land. You did the rebuilding yourself." Adrian pulled her close. "And you're going to keep building. A career, a home, a life that's entirely yours. I'm just lucky enough to be part of it." They signed the lease the next day. Spent the following weekend moving Lena's steadily growing collection of belongings from the bar to the new apartment. Emma flew in to help, bringing housewarming gifts and running commentary on Adrian's furniture choices. "This couch is great," she said, flopping onto the charcoal sectional Adrian had ordered. "But you need color. Throw pillows, art, something that isn't various shades of gray." "I like gray," Adrian protested. "Gray is boring. Lena, back me up here." Lena looked between them, fighting a smile. "I think we can compromise. Some gray, some color. Best of both worlds." By evening, the apartment was coming together. A mix of Adrian's minimalist aesthetic and Lena's slowly rediscovered love of vibrant textiles and artwork. It wasn't perfect, but it was theirs. A space they'd built together, full of compromise and collaboration instead of control. That night, after Emma had left and they'd finally gotten the bed assembled, Lena and Adrian lay tangled together in the dark, exhausted but happy. "Thank you," Lena said softly. "For what?" "For giving me the space to become myself again, for not trying to save me or fix me or turn me into someone convenient." She propped herself up to look at him. "For loving me as I am, damage and all." Adrian's hand moved through her hair. "Your damage doesn't define you. Neither does your strength. You're just you. Complicated and real and exactly who you're supposed to be." He smiled. "Though for the record, I think you saved yourself. I just provided the location." "Well, we saved each other," Lena corrected. "You were so closed off when I met you, so controlled and careful. But look at you now, decorating an apartment, compromising on throw pillows, building something with someone instead of just protecting your empire." "See? Growth." Adrian pulled her down for a kiss. "We're both works in progress. The best kind." Work continued to go well. The Morrison account was a massive success. leading to 3 more major clients signing with the agency. Sarah promoted Lena to senior strategist, giving her a team to manage and even more creative control. Lena threw herself into the work, discovering she had a knack for mentoring younger marketers, for helping them find their voice the way she'd had to find hers again. Adrian's businesses continued to thrive in their various gray areas, though Lena noticed he was being more selective about which opportunities he pursued. When she asked about it, he'd shrugged and said something about wanting to sleep better at night. She suspected her influence was part of that calculation, and she couldn't quite bring herself to feel bad about it. They learned each other's rhythms, their patterns, their needs, learned to fight productively instead of destructively, to voice concerns before they festered into resentment, to give each other space when needed and closeness when wanted. It wasn't perfect. They still had moments where Adrian's protective instincts overrode his judgment, or where Lena's trauma made her see control where none was intended. But they worked through it, always coming back to the foundation of honesty and choice they'd built. Emma visited regularly, becoming friends with Margaret and even warming up to Marcus, who she'd initially called the scary henchman. Adrian's sister flew in from Seattle 6 months after the trial, wanting to meet the woman who'd apparently transformed her notoriously closed-off brother into someone who smiled regularly and talked about the future. "I like you," Olivia Voss declared over dinner, her directness eerily similar to her brother's. "You're good for him. He's less of an emotionally constipated robot when you're around." "Olivia," Adrian warned. "What?" "It's true. You were turning into some kind of Grey's Anatomy villain before Lena showed up, all brooding and controlling and refusing to let anyone close." Olivia turned to Lena. "Thank you for making him human again." "I didn't do anything," Lena said, though she was smiling. "He did the work himself." With significant motivation, Adrian's hand found Lena's under the table. Turns out having someone worth changing for makes all the difference. The first anniversary of the night Lena had run into the Raven Room arrived with little fanfare. She hadn't planned to mark it, hadn't wanted to make a big deal out of what had been the worst night of her life. But when she woke that morning to find Adrian already up, making coffee in their sun-filled kitchen, she felt the weight of how far she'd come. "Morning," he said, handing her a cup. "Sleep okay?" "Yeah, you?" "Mostly." Adrian leaned against the counter. "I was thinking about what today is. A year since you walked through my door. I know, I've been trying not to think about it too much. We don't have to mark it if you don't want to. But I was thinking maybe we should acknowledge it somehow. Not the trauma or the fear, but the fact that you survived, that you chose to keep going." Lena considered that. "What did you have in mind?" "Dinner at the Raven Room, just us, Margaret, and whoever else you want there. A quiet celebration of resilience instead of victimhood." It was exactly the right thing. Not making the anniversary about Ryan or what he'd done, but about what Lena had overcome, about the life she'd built from the ashes. "Okay," she said. "Let's do it." That evening, they gathered at the bar. Lena, Adrian, Margaret, Emma, who'd flown in specifically for this, Victoria, who'd become a friend beyond just a lawyer, and even Detective Chen, who'd followed up periodically to check on Lena's well-being. It was small and intimate and perfect. "A toast," Margaret said, raising her glass, "to Lena Carter, who ran into a storm and came out the other side stronger than ever." "To surviving," Emma added. "To rebuilding," Victoria said. "To choosing yourself," Adrian finished, his eyes on Lena. They drank, and Lena felt tears prick her eyes. Not sad tears, but the kind that came from being seen and valued and celebrated by people who actually knew her, people she'd chosen to let in. "Thank you," she said quietly. "All of you, for helping me find my way back to myself." "You did the hard part," Margaret said. "We just provided the space for you to do it." Later, after everyone had left and it was just Lena and Adrian in the empty bar, she walked to the exact spot where she'd stood that first night. Dripping wet, terrified, desperate. She remembered how small she'd felt, how broken, how convinced she'd never be whole again. "What are you thinking?" Adrian asked, coming to stand beside her. "That I'm not that person anymore. The girl who stood here a year ago, she was so scared, so convinced she was nothing without Ryan." Lena turned to him. "I'm not scared anymore. Not of being alone, not of making choices, not of building a life on my own terms." "No, you're not?" Adrian's smile was proud. "You're fierce and capable, and exactly who you were always meant to be. Because you gave me the chance to remember that. Because you had the courage to take that chance. Adrian pulled her close. I keep telling you, I didn't save you, Lena. I just got to witness you saving yourself. 3 months later, on a crisp autumn evening, Adrian took Lena back to the Raven Room. She thought it was just dinner, their usual Thursday routine. But when they walked in, the bar was closed to the public, candlelight flickering on every surface, soft music playing in the background. Adrian, what? He took her hands, and she saw something vulnerable flicker across his face. A year and 3 months ago, you ran into my bar with nothing but hope and desperation. You trusted me when you had no reason to. You let me help you, but more importantly, you helped yourself. And somewhere in that process, I fell completely in love with you. Lena's heart was suddenly hammering. Adrian, let me finish. His smile was nervous, an expression she rarely saw on him. You've taught me how to let go, how to trust, how to build something real instead of just protecting myself from the world. You've made me want to be better, do better, live better, and I don't want to do any of it without you. He dropped to one knee, pulling a small velvet box from his pocket. Lena's breath caught. Lena Carter, will you marry me? Not because you need me or because I saved you, but because we choose each other. Because we're better together than we are apart. Because what we've built is worth making permanent. Lena looked down at him. This complicated, dangerous, surprisingly gentle man who'd given her space to heal and time to grow and love without conditions. She thought about how far she'd come, how much she'd rebuilt, how strong she'd become. And she realized that saying yes wasn't about needing him. It was about choosing him, about choosing the life they'd built together, the partnership they'd forged, the future they could create. Yes, she said, her voice steady and sure. Yes, I'll marry you. Adrian slipped the ring on her finger, a simple platinum band with a single diamond, elegant and understated and perfect. Then he stood and kissed her, and the bar erupted in applause. Margaret emerged from the back with champagne, Emma appeared with tears streaming down her face, and Lena realized Adrian had orchestrated this entire thing with the people who mattered most. You planned this, she accused, laughing through her own tears. I've been planning it for months, waiting for the right moment. Adrian's hand cupped her face. And tonight felt perfect. Not an anniversary of trauma, but a celebration of everything we've built. They celebrated late into the night, surrounded by the people who'd helped Lena rebuild her life. And when it was finally just her and Adrian walking back to their apartment through the city streets, Lena felt something settle in her chest. Peace. Real, genuine peace. Not the absence of fear, but the presence of certainty that she was exactly where she was supposed to be, with exactly who she was supposed to be with, living exactly the life she was meant to live. I love you, she said to Adrian, squeezing his hand. I love you too. He pulled her close, kissing the top of her head. More than I thought I was capable of loving anyone. We're going to be okay, Lena said. Whatever comes next, we're going to be okay. Yeah, Adrian agreed, his arm tight around her shoulders. We really are. And as they walked together through the city that had witnessed both her destruction and her rebirth, Lena knew it was true. She'd survived the worst things she could imagine. She'd rebuilt herself from nothing. She'd learned to trust, to love, to choose her own path. She was no longer running from anything. She was running towards something, a future she was creating, one choice at a time. A future filled with partnership instead of control, with freedom instead of fear, with love that empowered instead of diminished. Ryan Blake was locked away where he belonged, serving his time and slowly becoming irrelevant to her story. The trauma he'd inflicted would always be part of her, but it no longer defined her. She'd taken what he'd tried to destroy and forged it into something stronger, something beautiful, something entirely her own. 6 months later, they married in a small ceremony at the Raven Room, the place where her new life had begun. Emma stood as her maid of honor. Marcus served as Adrian's best man, awkward but sincere in his role. Margaret officiated, having gotten ordained online specifically for the occasion. Do you, Lena Carter, take Adrian Voss to be your lawfully wedded husband? Margaret asked, her voice thick with emotion. I do. No hesitation, no doubt. And do you, Adrian Voss, take Lena Carter to be your lawfully wedded wife? I do. firm and certain. Then by the power vested in me by the internet and the state, I now pronounce you husband and wife. Kiss her already, boss. Adrian pulled Lena close and kissed her thoroughly, to the applause and cheers of their small gathering of friends and family. And in that moment, Lena felt the last piece of her old life slip away completely. She was no longer Ryan's victim. She was no longer the scared woman who'd run into a storm with nowhere to go. She was Lena Voss, wife, professional, survivor, warrior. A woman who'd faced her worst nightmare and come through it stronger. A woman who'd learned that sometimes escaping one cage and choosing to build something with someone else wasn't weakness. It was the bravest thing she could do. And as she looked into Adrian's eyes, saw the love and respect and partnership reflected there, she knew with absolute certainty that she'd made the right choice. Not the easy choice, not the safe choice, but the right one. The choice that had led her here, to this moment, to this life, to this man who'd helped her remember that she was worth saving, not by him, but by herself. Together they walked out of the bar and into the rest of their lives, ready for whatever came next. Not because they weren't still dealing with their respective damage, but because they'd learned how to deal with it together. Not perfectly, but honestly. Not without struggle, but with commitment. And that, Lena thought as Adrian's hand found hers in the darkness, was what love really looked like. Not the fairy tale version that erased all problems, but the real version, where two damaged people chose each other anyway and built something beautiful from the pieces. She'd run into that storm a year and a half ago with nothing but fear driving her forward, and she'd found something she never expected, not just safety, but herself. Not just survival, but a life worth living. And that made every terrifying step, every painful choice, every moment of doubt completely worth it. Because she was finally, completely, undeniably free.